We decided to play God. Create life. And when that life turned against us, we comfort ourselves in the knowledge that it was the Cylons that were flawed. But the truth is, we are the flawed creation. We jump into uncharted space. We're a long way from home. Limited supplies, limited fuel, no allies, and now no hope. As of this moment, we are at war.
Sooner or later, the day comes when you can't hide from the things you've done.
Moments ago, this ship received word of a Cylon attack against our home worlds is underway.
You're the new breed of Cylon. The last time anybody saw the Cylons, they looked more like walking toasters.
I have feelings, hopes, wants, and what I want most of all is for you to love me.
The Cylons look like us, that any one of us can be a Cylon. You're gonna die in this body.
My consciousness will just be transferred to another one.
Another Cylon!
Humanity's children are returning home today.
Let's get this ship into the fight.
Get down!
Zach failed basic flight.
He should not have been there. He was only doing it for you.
Thought I should confess my sins.
How's the wife?
I promise you one thing. We will make it.
We have 50,000 people left. The war is over.
It hasn't begun yet.
Battlestar Galactica premieres Sunday, December 7th at 9, only on SyFy Channel.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
It's always a party here, so say we all. We got Travis Bow of the Real Comic Heroes and the recent Minutes podcast, that is Minute of Thieves, discussion of the 1991 Robin Hood film Prince of Thieves. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Always back on the show, we got blogger William Bregnard, also known as the #1 Stank Plissken Corporal Hicks fan. Welcome.
Hello.
Always great having you.
Reporting for duty.
Yep. Yeah, he's big in the Space Above and Beyond community, guys. Check him out. And always back, we got Gio and Robert from the SciFi Remnant.
Hello.
Hello. Glad to be back.
Always. You guys are doing some killer ones. Again, they have done everything from Children of Men to Cypher to Ghost in the Shell to even pilots of your favorite sci-fi shows. They will try and make sense of it and see why it gels. I'm your host, Soli. This has been a long time coming. I think we discussed it like the first month, and then I realized I better get my shit together to actually rewatch this from the start. And then, that turned into 4 years. But no, it was fun because I just figured this is kind of one of those that was part of the binging craze. If you didn't catch it when it was airing on the TV, then you collected all the DVDs at Blockbuster. This was around the same period as Lost, Jericho, 24, and Sopranos. And what's funny is my folks would watch this. It wasn't one of their favorites, but they could not take their eyes off it. So that blew my mind. It's like, hey, they're not necessarily like hardcore fans, but they find this interesting. And my uncle was living with us at the time. He was a huge sci-fi guy. So it was often hours of this, X-Files, Next Gen, Stargate, and then this. And it is so funny how Universal is kind of, we've talked about people who program stuff but aren't necessarily fond of it. We talked about that with some of the HBO shows. We talked about that with even Howard Stern, where the ratings are coming in, but the programmers couldn't care less about the actual content. That kind of happened with this, where they wanted to make it cheap in Canada, and then it was better than they even expected, to where it kind of made all their other material inferior. So they were trying to kind of secretly kill it if they could. It's like, why would you do that? Why not embrace the success? How did you get into it, Travis? Were you? I was familiar with the '70s show, but I had was years before I actually saw it. How about yourself?
Yeah, I had a friend who was obsessed with this show and Lost, and he got me into both of them. I hadn't been watching either of them, but then my wife and I started renting the DVDs probably through Blockbuster. I don't remember if Netflix was doing DVDs. Either way, we were renting the DVDs.
Yeah, around 07, 2012.
Yeah,
yeah, that makes sense.
And then so yeah, we watched it. We binged it then, and Battlestar Galactica is actually how I got into podcasting. I mean, I was already listening to podcasting.
Oh wow!
But I was listening to a podcast called Resurrection Cast. It was they long since defunct.
I think I did see that in the early days. There back when it was only websites and
yeah. So they were going through the show, like the host was, had seen the show multiple times, and her two co-hosts were newbies, nuggets, and so they would go through the show every episode, and so the two co-hosts didn't have a clue what was going to happen, and they had a big Facebook following, and I was on their Facebook group because I listened to the show, and then they would eventually start opening up like guest spots to the Facebook community, and that was the first show I ever guested on a podcast, and I did like three or four episodes with them throughout their run, and then I already knew I wanted to do a podcast, but that's actually the very first podcast I was ever on was Resurrection Cast, talking about I think Maelstrom was one episode we talked about, and then I was on for their finale, like 3-part kind of thing. So.
But yeah, I think that was back in 2017. But that's awesome. Okay,
I know the host got back into Catholicism and then renounced the show. She said that she didn't back anything she had said, on the show, because she found religion again or something. So I don't know if the show is still available.
She became her own Baltar.
Yeah.
Jeez. There's some good ones out there. There's Galactica, actually. There's Spacing Out with Battlestar, which just finished and is going to go into its own TV recap session. But yeah, that's very true. This is kind of one of the many. Tricia Helfer, who plays number 6, used to do one. And that actually, I went into that back when it was first a thing, 2018. Yeah. And I never saw every single episode back in the day, but I saw the miniseries. I got the general gist of it. It was very easy to follow, even when it wasn't, if that makes sense. And having those guests on, including her Lucifer co-stars, was an even bigger hoot, because she was also kind of playing pranks on them. Like, oh, you knew this episode was going to be too much, right? A little edgy, a little gritty. That should be very clear in the first episode. This is not an easy show. Yeah. William, when did you make time for this complex show? We're not talking about Space Above and Beyond. We're not talking about Babylon 5. We're talking about new Battlestar.
So, yeah, the original series actually aired when I was 2, and I did watch it. And so we're talking about the 78 series, and I became my first, crush was, of course, Sheba, who I've never met, who actually lives around here somewhere in North Texas.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. So, cool. And there have been talks of it coming back. Of course, Richard Hatch had done it, had tried, mortgaged his house to try to do it, and was promoting. He came to a couple of conventions around here promoting the Second Coming, I think what it was called.
We had some of the filmmakers and actors on of that. And
really?
I'll link some of them to you. And nicest people in the world, just done everything, worn every kind of hat, done documentary reenactments, done B-movies, done classier stuff. And that was a total labor of love. That was one of the legit first fan films. And then if you read Hard Men in Hard Times, which is a breakdown of all the edgy, gripping, and addicting TV shows of the 80s to today, they talked about how they wisely, when pitching this, Edward James almost pretty much was game, and he opened up the door and he just flat out told everyone, "This is not your uncle's Battlestar. we can't be that. We're being our own thing. And so that kind of, it was almost like a rap star or sports star kind of being outspoken at a press meeting. It kind of opened it up and is like, okay, well, so don't expect something completely, just don't expect anything. It was kind of a precursor to how people promote a Christopher Nolan or Jordan Peele movie. They'll show like literally nothing, but make people kind of want to predict the unpredictable. And seeing how, I mean, I was already familiar with them because Stand and Deliver was a favorite movie of every single high school I went to. So I saw that. I saw how he and the writers worked in every Blade Runner and Alien reference as they could. And they're like, hey, it's Replicant. Hey, send out the Colonial Marines. Is like, okay, so I can see where this started up the whole this is in the same universe argument. Yeah, no, did you DVR this in the early days or?
Okay, so funny story about that. I was broke. My wife and I were, my wife had just about to graduate from TCU, go Frogs. And I was about to go in. I had, go Frogs. So we were broke. And I had heard, I knew who Ronald D. Moore was because of DS9 and Next Generation. I knew who he was.
Good versus
and
evil.
so, oh yeah. And so when this show, NBC actually aired a cut down, I think they aired over 2 nights. And of course, it premiered on December 8th. 2003, which
that was one of the first where I would see them air the same thing. They would cut it down. They still do it now. I'll see like Lifetime and History Channel will share the same ratings with something, and they still do it. It's like if it's on Sci-Fi, then it's on USA and E and NBC the same night. And like you say, they would modify it. They would edit out any uses of the word shit if they could.
Yeah, thank God for the word frack, right? Thank the Lord.
Yeah. Well, what could they have done without that? And that just kind of made it more, you can take it serious, but it kind of just made me just like, see, I'm open to seeing creators come up with their own language. It doesn't have to be just Klingon or robot speak.
Or Elvish.
Yeah, here's the new insult. Here's a new phrase.
At least they left out Felbercarb or whatever the other word was they used to say in the original series. But December 8th, of course, is the day we declared war against Japan in 1941. So I think it was aired. I think there might be some cultural significance when it was aired. I'm not 100% sure. The show kind of grabbed me by the balls because I'm like, this is very different. And then when the scene where they're at Ragnar and, the Galactica's out providing the screen and they're jumping behind, I was like, oh, well, how you doing?
Yeah, I totally got the post 9/11 syndrome.
Oh,
a lot of other people didn't really, but I for me, I totally echoed it. It was that same. It wasn't like a fearmonger show, but it was the whole this terrorism is eating us up all alive.
Yeah.
We suspect each other. We don't trust each other when we should. And
and
we're eating each other alive.
When he raps the thing and he says, we're at war. And it was Everett J. Allen, of course, is just a brilliant actor. And I was unsure about him at the time. Half the cast, I didn't even know who they were.
Who was those guys? Yeah.
Who was he? Who was Starbuck? Because, the picture made the rounds of Starbuck with Starbuck at Starbucks.
Halloween 10.
Yeah.
And a few other B movies and everything. And this is her make it or break it role. And
so I watched that and I was like, okay. And then it goes on SyFy Channel. I don't have cable. There's no way I can afford cable. And this is before you could like get on to Daily Motion or anything and watch it.
You're right.
Right. So it's, you can't,
Dial
unless
up
you're going to
internet, guys.
You're like, okay, I can see 6. It's like, coming through. But what hit me was,
isn't that wild? She went ahead and got that out of the way. She's like, sure, I'll post for Playboy.
Sure, let's just do this.
And this was one of the first when it came to DVD. It had extended scenes that weren't necessarily edgier, but it was still, it blurred that line between
Unrated.
PG-13 and R, where you're just like, okay, well, this just wait till you're 15, 16 to watch this.
Exactly. And then, Blockbuster had Razor, and I watched Razor because I heard about the Pegasus, which, I'm like, okay, Pegasus, Admiral Kane, I got to check this shit out. And I was like, oh, this is different. Of course, I knew who she was from Lorraine, the first real Bajoran.
Michelle Forbes,
Michelle Forbes, thank you. And of course, she's just rocking. And
the same thing like Almost, where you don't really necessarily get a Hispanic look from her right away, but she can play all different types of ethnicities and predicaments. She's played plenty of heroes on stuff like Homicide, and then after
and then a
Star
villain.
Trek, she got away from that and did more kind of, like you say, villains and
A villain. I
and
mean,
this is a
Admiral
gray
Kane.
area where she's technically a good guy, but she doesn't have anyone interest at heart, and if you threaten her, she wants you dead.
She'll frack you up.
Yeah, it's like, so it does instantly. You're like, who is a hero in this whole thing? Because like, I should like them, but they're also being foolhardy. I mean, Travis
Yeah.
has a Top Gun shirt. It's the same kind of deal where we are seeing the immaturity kind of flesh out in these young adults, and the callousness of them. And I've already lost track of on this rewatch of how many war crimes were committed.
Oh,
Like,
God.
and like,
And it was,
and I'm not talking even necessarily of torture. Even I'm talking like just flat out, like they are looking at each other dead eyed, and they're like, "Don't come in this room." Yes, like
exactly.
Humanity's children are returning home today.
Battlestar Galactica, the complete series on DVD. On the Emmy Award-winning, critically acclaimed show that Time magazine calls one of the best dramas on TV. Relive the intensity. You're gonna have to kill me! The drama. Do it. And the thrill of humanity's fight for survival.
We are at war.
All will be revealed.
You are the harbinger of death, Kara 3.
As the epic franchise comes to an end.
Go find a way to Earth.
The complete series includes every episode of every season with hours of explosive DVD extras.
Just let me go.
A lot of good people are gonna die.
Battlestar Galactica is the must-own DVD of the year.
In the end, we're all just human.
Battlestar Galactica, the complete series, now on DVD and Blu-ray High Def.
So here's the funny thing. I couldn't get my hands on it. So the Borders goes out of business. And I had like this huge coupon off. I did the one on Hewlin Street. If you're in from the Dallas area, Fourth area, I was at the location in Hewlin, right near where I used to work at MHMR. So down the street.
Sweet.
And I had this coupon, and a friend of mine had done some work, and they paid me a $100 bill. So this $100 bill that was just mine, I run down there. They had the box set. It's DVD, not Blu-ray. And I said, I want that. And they're like, we can't, and they had this coupon. I managed to get it for like $100, and I don't remember what it used to sell for. So my pride and joy, I'd never seen the series complete. So I sat down for just whenever I could do it. And I was working at my hospital job, so I worked 3 days a week, and the rest of the time I could be at home doing chores, hang out with my kids or whatever. So my lunch hour at home, I would crank on an episode, and that's how I watched it from beginning to end. And then rewatch, I would cherry pick it. And because it's such an awakening for me, and it was right around the time Future War Stories was starting or about to start. And I couldn't get over, and I didn't spoil
That's
anything.
his blog,
I didn't
for
get
those who
on.
don't know. Please check him out. You'll find something for everybody. It's
something for everybody. And I was just like, and it grabbed me. Still show. I went back and watched pieces before we did this, and it still holds up. And to me, and then I was so heartbroken when Blood and Chrome, which is an amazing title, was going to come out. I thought finally we're going to see young Adama. We're going to see the original Cylon War. We're going to do this. Yeah. And then it's a web show. It's like 4 episodes. I don't even know what it looks like now because I haven't checked it out in a while. And I was so horribly disappointed. Caprica's
I think the unrated version's slightly better. There's
really?
Just, most people were making a deal because they're like, oh, extended, violence and nudity. And he actually calls someone a cocksucker in one scene. Or no, my bad. It's Razor. And I was like, whoa, hey. Like you barely catch it. Like he says it so fast, but you're just like,
but we won't edit out the gang rape of the pleasure model in the brain, right? We won't edit that out.
We won't edit out anything else that's ethically, just on sound. Yeah.
Horrendous.
But yeah, no, it was just so weird how there's like some extra dialogue. And
every week, an all-new 2-minute Battlestar Galactica experience that tells the story of young Adama in the first Cylon War.
They were making something down here, experimenting on people.
The best 2 minutes on television. Razor flashbacks every Friday during Flash Gordon at 9. It's all leading up to Battlestar Galactica Razor, premiering Saturday, November 24th at 9 on SyFy.
Ensign William Adama reporting for flight duty, sir. They're taking down our planes right and left.
I can't get a lock. Incoming!
Brace for contact.
I thought you wanted to end this war. What's that noise he's making?
screaming.
I gotta say, for all these Canadian actors, this is probably some of their best roles. Like every one of them. Like I know people like to make fun of them because they're plentiful. They're in almost every production that's there, but like so many of them, are from the Stargate franchise, Highlander, X-Men, Smallville, Supernatural, and Arrow, and all of them are really challenging each other. Even some of them have gone on to do plenty of other horror anthologies, procedurals there that are coming to here now on like USA or the CW or TNT. But like so on this rewatch, like some of them end up being like 1 to 3 episodes each and like getting some reasonable screen time. And like some of them are throwaway roles where they're just the guard who gets knocked out by whatever Cylon they're guarding, but each of them instantly where they stand. They'll either say a slur or a prejudice kind of thing, and it's just kind of their way of just saying, hey, they're not comfortable in their own skin, no pun intended, but then like they will pretty much plan a mutiny if they feel like it. And it's like, how do you even address that in outer space? This is before we got more politicized. Like, this is even more freaky watching it now.
Still walking the plank, but you can airlock people out, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like, if that's how every argument ends, who wants to live that way?
Airlock.
So there's a thing that I showed on screen, if you could see it. That's one of my pride and joy. That's when, before Eagle Moss went out of business, I bought the Galactica, and it sits there. If you have an opportunity to buy any of those, I don't buy too many of those kind of things. And my little girl who's 8 goes, Daddy, you already have a bunch of spaceships. I'm like, I know, but I'm gonna have another one. And it really is fracking awesome. The Galactica, I'm eventually gonna get the I want to get the Pegasus and put them together on my new bookshelf. But anyway, I wanted to show that. So if you've ever thought about buying an Eagle Moss, I'm not paid by them, and they're out of business anyway. If you ever want to buy one of those Eagle Moss Galacticas, that thing is awesome, and it's actually fairly good size. So I fully endorse it. But I really love it.
I don't know if it could handle the Rocinante from The Expanse. I got that.
Oh, that thing is cool. Some of those.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, I'll shut up now. But anyway.
No, it's fine. That's
anyway.
awesome. You're still, you got the better space model. Those ships did take a lot of damage to where I'm like, so what is the capacity? There's like maybe 3 episodes where they describe their armor and weapons and everything, and I'm like, so how much can they take before they get decimated?
And the thing
seems to change like every Cylon. Like some of them you can. It's not as deliberately vague as say like a Predator or a Terminator, where you're like,
right.
Yeah, this one you can, just punch a few times and it's deactivated. Well, this one, no, you're gonna have to waste 5 machine guns on it just to take one down.
I mean, we could get into the Galactica weaponry and actually the colonial military. I'm actually working on an article right now.
That is a true point. From a cinematography standpoint, like you can tell they did not want to date themselves in any way. There's like they don't even show you what kind of camera they're using. I'm sure there's going to be a nitpicker who's like, oh, it's a Desert Eagle, oh, it's a DSLR. Right. It's like they are deliberately hiding it. It's like it does not matter. That they're kind of doing exactly what they did on Babylon 5. They're like, whatever moves the story forward, your guess is as good as mine as to whether there's a million on that ship versus this. I mean, hell, in the miniseries, both Adama Jr. and Starbuck blow up 10,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
What other show does that? And these guys.
Do you remember the little girl?
Oh yeah.
Remember the little girl? They can't jump out, and they're like, and you hear the radio traffic. They're like, for God's sakes, for the Lord's sakes, don't leave us. And the little girl is telling about how she's going. I watched that scene live on. I was like, oh my God, I'm not okay. And of course, this is not too many years after September 11th. And then the missiles come in and wipe them out, and they all jump away. And I was like, and I thought, wow, school's in session, boys and girls. This is going to be gory.
And before that, that's when number 6 kills the one baby, just as a mercy killing. And she said in that podcast she used to host, she had a sister-in-law who was a big fan of her. She's like, you're gonna be a great star and everything. She's like, but I can't watch your show because of that scene. Like, I'm sure it's great, but I'm just now become a mother myself, so I can't. No, it is amazing how. I mean, even that plot twist when we think Adama has drowned Boomer's baby, and then that's a big fake out. It's like, we told you that so you would not rebel against us, but we gained the power with that psychological damage, so I might as well have done the unimaginable. All these freakouts, all these nightmare fuel where they're having a daydream, I think really gets us in the mode. When you let your mind run wild, I'm sure it would totally run wild if you're in outer space.
And this show had that. Okay, for someone who was saying Lost a minute ago, Tress, I think you said Lost. Lost,
Yeah.
and this show shared something where you were like, "Oh, what's the opera house? What are these things they're seeing?" And it was fuel where, like in Lost, like, what do the numbers mean? My wife and I actually watched the show together. She didn't watch Galactica, but she watched Lost with me, and you would have that conversation about the mystery. And we'll get into it later, but Galactica, to me, the ending satisfied me in a way that I couldn't fully realize for years, especially when Adama and the music plays and the ships go off in the sun. I cried. I actually watched that scene today at work, and I cried.
Isn't it wild how George R.R. Martin trashed that finale? Think about that for a minute.
Oh, whatever.
Think about that for a minute. A man who can't even finish his own book and has the most infamous TV ending years later. I mean, Will Wheaton is also a big sci-fi viewer outside of his acting duties and says he has not ever seen the finale because he wants to preserve what he had originally. I'm like, what? Why not make up your own mind, dude? It used to be you watch something and you make up your mind. I don't know why that culture has kind of come back where people feel pressured, like, oh, it's not as good as the last one, or I feel like I can't actually admit that I like this or hate this, or we're not a fascist government. I think we can make up our minds. So Robert and Gio, how did you come upon this? Were you watching this on the boob tube back in the day, or did you see this eons later?
Well, I'm gonna say only that I didn't know Galactica until a friend of mine got me into it.
Robert. I love how he's pointing at you.
And the funny, hilarious thing is that the way that I did get to Galactica, and I asked him, and then he actually streamed it down on me, was that I came across Caprica from CBS, and I discovered after it was canceled, and I fell in love with it. And then I binge watched the whole thing, and then I discovered that it's incomplete. And then I asked Robert, and I know what Galactica was, but I never watched it before, so I didn't make the connection. And then he told me, actually, you watch like the first part of what happens before all the Galacticas. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And that's how my adventure with Battlestar Galactica started, thanks to Robert.
Nice. You were just holding him at ease. You're like, trust me.
Oh yes.
No,
I'm not as cool as him and Travis that used to listen to podcasts when RSS feeds was a thing.
Man.
Yeah, I remember you had to actually store your files and then link it to the RSS code in your page. Yeah.
Alrighty, tell us how you really feel.
The good old times of podcasting. How I was 8 years old when I started the original Battlestar.
OG, nice. Okay. And we've done a chat on that before, and it is interesting how it has taken years for people to just acknowledge it as its own thing. You're like, yes, everything was trying to be like Star Wars. That doesn't mean you can't, apples and oranges. You can enjoy both.
That's what you call Robert a cold follower, right?
Well, the reason
a Baltar follower.
The reason why I'm mentioning this is the fact that Gio knows this, and everybody that listens to our shows knows me, and the fact that this is a show that I should have not liked.
Oh, really? Would have been too edgy.
It doesn't make any sense. The formula, it's just gritty. It's dark. It's just hard. It's everything that Gio likes in the show is here, and everything that I don't like is here. So I remember I used to work for a call center at the time when this was released for the first time.
So you're kind of like my folks, where you weren't necessarily like, I'm addicted, but you're still like watching this because there's just something that draws you into it.
Here's the thing. I was excited because I saw the commercials, right? And I was like, okay, I'm expecting, my sci-fi to be, I wasn't expecting this. Let's say this. So I watched the first episode and I'm like, I don't know about this. It's, I know,
Reject.
I don't like this. I mean, look at Starbucks.
I'm the best shot in or out of the cockpit. I've made mistakes in the past, Let personal feelings cloud my judgment. But now, I've got to get it together. Do the thing I do best. Shoot the enemy out of the sky. The world is over. The fight is just beginning.
And I keep on putting all these typical things that you hear online, people say, yet I continue watching.
Gatekeeping.
And well, it's not necessarily that. It's the fact that, you know, I grew up with nostalgia for this story that is kind of like Star Wars. And now I see something that is not that. And
Right.
it's not
different styles, so it's a lot to process.
Exactly. So, and then the style that I don't like. That's the kind of stuff that I don't like watching.
The documentary kind of.
Well, just the greedy, bloody, you know, dark air,
okay.
you know, stuff like that. I don't typically like that. Now, here's the thing, and this we actually talked about this, me and Gio and my other co-host for the show. This show is its own thing.
Yeah,
I fell in love with the show. I watched the entire thing, and I couldn't tell you how many times I rewatched it. Loved it.
Damn.
And it's like I told Gio, it doesn't make sense for me to like it because it's not the type of thing I like. And I love the show. And most of the times that I hear people say, "Oh no, I refuse to watch it because, you know, they departed so far away from the original, and the original is so bright and so hopeful." Which, by the way, we all know is still.
I feel
dark.
like this was the precursor, like before the Batman Begins, before the Abrams Star Trek. I feel like this was kind of the one where it's like you can do your own thing without being derivative, without needing a comparison. I mean, the fact that they have another Cylon colonies, which are totally the same design, the same way as the original in that 1st season, I thought was kind of a fun acknowledgement. I mean, the fact that Zarek is played by Richard Hatch, you know.
Yeah.
It was very clever the way they did that. And I have
and he's the bad guy. So it's like
yep.
He's really likable on the original show.
Exactly.
He's the mutiny guy here. Oh shoot.
If you think about it, it's a made up version to really pay some kind of tribute to what there was.
Yeah. The way that I look at it, and this is what I try to tell people that say, no, I won't watch this because it departs really far away from the original, is that to me,
I won't even give it 3 episodes. I'm done, man.
Watch the first episode. Do what I did, right? They're two separate things. They're both equally great, but in retrospect, I can't really compare one to the other.
Yeah.
Like comparing apples to oranges. You can't. It's its own thing, and they're both amazing. So that's my introduction to Galactica and my resilience and that my not wanting to like this as much as I ended up liking it.
It's fun to be surprised once in a while where you're just like, okay, this has happened.
So I'm slowly bringing the chaos into Galactica. I know this is a show.
Yeah,
Gio, he has totally changed me. He has totally changed me because before when we started the podcast, I was kind of like avertive to like campiness and 80s because of the campiness. Like I like more like sarcasm, like deep plot.
You want something very dense that'll give you some
tears.
Yes.
yes. And Robert has like rub off on me because like now I don't really care for campiness. I used to be picky with CGIs and like cool special effects, and I've learned to appreciate things for what they are actually now. You know?
What is the campy you that made you watch? Like, you know, Clockwork Orange style.
I mean, Travis, you've talked various times about cult films,
Cold Orange is
like
very
Big
dark,
Trouble in Little China. It's hard to believe that just some stuff like was absolutely loathed. Like I still, I talked about Blade Runner earlier. That it just blows my mind. I can understand not liking stuff like Fight Club or The Matrix because it's just intense. You just mentioned Clockwork. There's another divisive film. And just Blade Runner just kind of puzzles me. I'm like, you just. Like, because that just got me into detective stuff, and it's in a sci-fi setting.
Yes.
Right. So there's a lot to go through on this. I'll try to condense it as best I can. So this covers again William Adama. He is the new commander. Later, the admiral falls in love with the colony president, Janet Roslin. Starbuck in this is a woman, Kara. Apollo is the captain and son. of Adama, and the religious zealot is Dr. Baltar, who has a connection mentally to the Cylons, because, spoiler, he happened to be one of the brains behind the whole experiment gone wrong. So this is just wild, because like the 12 colonies is kind of a little complex in the original, and this one they're kind of just like straight up like, this colony doesn't exist, you got to go and find this new version of Earth here, and oh, we can't inhabit that version of Earth, we got to go to this one now. And spoiler, we can actually go back to the Earth we abandoned now that the Cylon threat is over. This is pretty much a to Z kind of thing, but then like the barriers themselves are almost as big as the many asteroid fields they go through. Like it's like, we can go here, but we're outnumbered, or we're gonna have to leave a bunch of people behind, and it'll be X amount of months before we can come back. There's a do or die kind of mentality, but there's also a damned if you do or don't kind of thing that like there is. This is so vibrant on this rewatch, like, and I think it's actually kind of more fun if you know ahead of time who later is revealed to be a Cylon. Like I knew about that with kind of like Starbuck, and that was one thing that divided fans, but I think it's actually a little more fun if you go back then, because then kind of like Boomer, you're trying to see, okay, so when does the real one switch out?
Yeah.
They say the Cylons look like us now. They say we need to be strong. We need to stay focused. But I'm struggling to do either. I have to gain control. The enemy cannot win. The world is over. The fight is just beginning.
And I still can't believe that this aired, there was the miniseries in 03, and, that I was seeing part of that when I was in junior high, and I couldn't believe, oh, wow, you're having epics, but on the small screen. The TV landscape is changing. It's becoming edgy again. You actually want to binge it. And the fact that the first season of this is a 4-season run with, 2 TV movies, and they aired it in the UK first, and then aired it in the US here the following year. I have never seen that done since. Like, it seems to be the other way around. Like, whatever country it originates in, it airs there first.
Damn you, BBC.
Oh, in this case, it was Sky One, which is like the British Fox equivalent. So I wonder why they decided, hey, we want to experiment a bit. But they kind of have a habit of not airing shows incomplete. So we already blame the US, but apparently they do it too. I think we've kind of covered a lot of the basis on how to watch this and everything. If anyone sees the Blu-rays, they're not required, but you will like some of the extra scenes that they add to specific episodes. There's only, I think, about 10 each season. Well, no, maybe total. And if it's too pricey for you, I understand. You can, this is not streaming anywhere currently, but you can buy it on Vudu and Amazon, and that's probably the best way to do it.
It bums me out that it's not streaming anywhere, because it used to be on Netflix.
Yeah.
It sucks that it's not anywhere right now.
It was in Hulu back in 2018, and then they kept taking it down, and then
it was on Peacock for a while, maybe, which makes sense, being a Universal and all that. But
same deal. They literally took it down like a year when that thing came out. I'm like, what? That's one of your biggest properties.
It might come to Tubi, because I saw that it showed it in the catalog. But
the original is definitely on Tubi still. Razor you can buy on Vudu. It's not on Prime anymore. The plan is still only a DVD Blu-ray only thing, so it's not required. But for those who want to just kind of pick apart and know how the cookie crumbled a little more, it's still worth at least one watch. Blood and Chrome, same deal. Caprica, same deal. I guess we could talk a little bit about those when we get near the end. But yeah, it's it is a pickle. It is a wonder why you wouldn't want to have it on at least a few streaming platforms. I've seen it occasionally. They'll be re-airing it even on Telemundo, which is a Universal channel. But yeah, I don't I am with you guys. I do not understand why you wouldn't want to milk something instead of let it just keep losing value over time and just bury it.
And I think sci-fi needs this.
Yes.
Sci-fi as a community needs to see this again.
Yeah.
They've done some occasional marathons with new interviews with everybody, but yeah, it's why let something just kind of exhaust itself out and act like it doesn't exist? This is also one of the first shows where it's like they would split up the seasons because they were trying to get over a writer's strike, and then before that they were also trying to have enough, like, here's season 1 part 1, get it at the video store before season 2 or season 1 part 2 comes out. And it's like, so that was definitely a bit of a scuffle at first. I can only imagine the headaches. Yeah. So looking at this overall, I do feel like it's just so much fun. I keep going back to the mini characters. There are so many of them who, they're not the first like 6 people, but they kind of have minor key roles in various things. Like, I mentioned Zarek earlier. He is always, when first introduced, that he wants to basically, as the VP, take over the presidency, but you never really are prepared for it. Even no matter how many times you've seen it, you're just like, yeah, he just seems like a nice guy who wants an opportunity, but he's not going to go to the point where he's going to threaten to kill people. But I'm completely mistaken. He will totally try and kill a bunch of people because that's how ruthless he is. I had fun looking at just some of the other guys here who completely refuse orders, and it makes you wonder why they're not in a prison cell. Skulls was one. He's a big, tall, handsome black guy who Starbuck at one point has to wound during the first insurrection. But it's so wild how they don't even bring that up again. They're just like, yeah, we don't trust you, but you're here until, we get rid of you.
I'll tell you what, watching through, one of my favorite characters to rewatch is the Doctor. Galactica the Search. My
Rest
God.
in peace.
Oh, yeah.
He
is
he's constantly
astonishing.
smoking, but he's he's like one of the few optimistic people on the show. He's like, I mean, you have to kind of be if you're a doctor, but I mean, like, man.
And he works on both Cylon and human, especially during the occupation. And as someone who works with doctors in his job, the real thing I have to do. But it's funny how I don't know who he is. I looked him up one, but he reminds me of someone they like pulled out of MASH and they stuck him into Battlestar Galactica.
He does.
He's that kind of doctor, yeah.
Yes.
I had seen his resume a bunch. He's on Da Vinci's Inquest a bunch, but yeah, he'd been on a few other things, and it just seemed like, yeah, he is just kind of like the legit guy. Like he's always neutral too when he's saying is like, I will not harm a child. I will not do this. I don't care about your military privilege. Someone's got to survive here, and they do kind of almost go into formulaic territory by saying he's like literally one of the few doctors left, but they kind of back it up by also saying, hey, just let's take some shortcuts. You don't need a medicine. You just need, some physical therapy, or just need to just not be in combat the next, 5 months. Here's a character I'll link here in the group chat. So here's this one character here, Noah Allison, played by Sebastian Spence, who you might recognize from a few different shows like First Wave. He's one of the blonde, kind of clean-shaven guys. And it's so wild, too, how when they first do their various mutinies, he refuses like every order of Adama's. And yet at the same time, he's like, I respect you, sir, but I'm not going to follow it. I'm like, damn. Like, that is like, I would like to know a little more about that character. I get that he's just one of the many voices in the room, but like that this brings up a good, like you say, just every character is in the gray area for the most part. And then when they try to redeem half the bad guys in those last 2 seasons, it's even more interesting. It's like, yeah, are they beyond redemption? You could probably argue yes for the most part, but at least they're trying, as opposed to just, I want to be powerful and wealthy,
Yeah.
It's interesting how, again, the chain of command is like a constant theme. Like, who do you respect? Because we kind of encounter this at our day jobs. or at least at some point we have. It's like, I respect the title, but I don't respect the person. And there is always this dilemma. I like how not all of them are just hiding behind illegal drugs and just going to the bar constantly, or just, I mean, earlier on, Starbuck is totally into mindless sex, and Adama Jr. is kind of just ego driven. He's like, yeah, and it's like, and they thankfully just kind of break out of that after a while. They're like, yeah, I can't keep doing this, whatever I'm doing, but I don't know how to change, which is also kind of heartbreaking. It's like when you have no one really to kind of look to, or you've severed that friendship, how do you kind of raise yourself back up mentally and physically?
I think one of my favorite things about the show was how they showed, society, it was basically like however many ships were left in the fleet.
It was so hard to keep track of.
Yeah, like 50,000 people left or whatever it is. And society doesn't just collapse. And the fact that they still have government, Rosalind becomes president because she's the head of
Secretary of Education.
Secretary. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, right.
And then they still have like all their elections and meetings, and but then one of my favorite episodes or concepts was when they were dealing with the one of the ships that was in charge of processing, was it the water?
Tillium.
I think
It was Tillium.
That's right.
I think it's near
That's
the
the
main
second episode, I think.
Yeah,
it's like near the main base camp where
and
traders
someone
come in
says
and-
like we're forced to be grunts because like we don't choice to anything else because we just have to do this job and we don't get a choice anymore. And that's one of my I always love that
so
about the
telling
show is
because we get that in our various cities where we see just rundown areas, but the city is not rebuilding the roads there, and so we're like, well, instead of just saying avoid that place, why not how about in this day and age, why not form a GoFundMe? Yeah, it's very eye-opening how everybody's trying to kind of prosper, but they're also trying to, you can only ignore the elephant in the room so long. It's like, let's just wind down. Let's get together. We don't have to like each other, but we gotta work together. Otherwise we're no better than these, various killer bots.
Well, and then you still have some people in society that get to live on the cruise ship. Yeah, I mean, it's like
they
put them in the mines for 6 months and rotate them out or something. If everyone has to do their part.
Totally. Corey Foster, the special aide to the president, man, it's just when you first introduce her, you're like, oh, okay. And it's not a plot hole, but I like when she first turns on Rosalind, where like they fix the vote to try and elect Baltar the Zealot in the president. I'm like, why was she given a second chance? And I think it's just because on closer inspection, she downplays her nature. She's just like the less likely person you would expect to be kind of a cutthroat. She plays it cool. And I mean, when you see how she finds out she's a Cylon, along with the callous Colonel Teague and Xander. Yes. Yeah. And
Tally.
How he has killed his wife Tally to cover that up because she knows about it. It's just like I like how she still kind of, she has really no one to answer to. Like she is so about the deception and she doesn't even believe it anymore. She doesn't really believe in herself. It's interesting how some of these people, this is a very realistic show in terms of just kind of describing all the different bullies, all the different cutthroats, but it really does show how they get no reward after all this deception. And I'm like, see, that was kind of cool instead of just, oh, you make up your own ending. It's like, no, they all got an ending. They all got a comeuppance in some way.
Some of them got out the airlock too, the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I think for me, one of the things that really hit me rewatching parts of this for this interview, I felt like, okay, for instance, let's compare it to another show that Ronald D. Moore kind of wrote this as an anti, is Voyager. Star Trek Voyager. Now, I'm a huge Trekkie. Robert, I respect all your technical manuals right next to you. I have the same edition, so very nice, sir. But every in Voyager, they tried a little bit of this. And then you look at Battlestar Galactica, which had some concepts about putting people together, the fact that when someone dies, you lose all that skill, all that intelligence, all that knowledge. A ship blows up, and what do they have on it?
Replace it. And it was really good how they did it on the space opera shows. It wasn't just like the different doctor or cop shows where they're like, hey, new maintenance. It's like, no, they're in space.
You have a finite
they were never
amount of resources.
They transferred. They got killed in the line of duty, and
it's a smart way to socially create with the audience some kind of emphasis.
Absolutely,
on the important individual importance of every character. Don't go further. What Cam mentioned earlier, how one voice in the room creates such deep impact on him. So you don't even need much or a lavish amount of words to really convey a good message and create a connection with one background character.
Definitely a good connection. I'm still actually a little more startled by Dwala's suicide, Adama's wife, Adama Jr.'s wife, because it does come out of nowhere, but I don't feel like it's just random or anything. I do feel like they kind of hint at how she is completely unhappy.
Yeah.
And then Adama goes to the cabin, and he goes, he puts the gun in his hand. Come on, let's fucking do it. Let's do it. And he goes, and he starts, teasing. Yeah. He starts teasing him. He goes, oh, your wife came up to me too. And I watched that scene just actually like 2 days ago. And I remember he goes, give me your fracking sidearm. And he goes, and he racks it. And it's stuff like that. And of course, Edward John Olmos, who I've never want to face a boxing ring, he beat the crap out of me. He's so visceral. And that scene, and the other actor, the Canadian actor that played the second in command, I don't know why his name is escaping him, old Cyclops.
Michael Hogan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Where the hell has he been?
Yeah.
Oh, you're fracking with me, Bill. And I love him. And then the fact that glass almost winds up in his lap, if you watch the scene really carefully.
Yeah, that's true. They
almost goes
it
under.
Away. You gotta where you can see all the items that are in the room before they walk in. So good on them. I mean, because like all these guys, Michael Notkin, everybody, they have done virtually every genre. They've done. Yes. I saw them in the behind the scenes for Dark Winds recently, this new Navajo mystery show. But yeah, he's done sci-fi, horror, action. Everyone owes it to see the Blu-ray behind the scenes, because during the season 3 legal showdown where they're in court challenging Baltar, they had to keep that completely silent. Like only the ADs are whispering directions to the cinematographer, and it's so funny that the cinematographers are like, "Let's shoot already." He's waiting for instructions, and the directors are like, we're shooting 5 different versions of the scene. I don't know what will be in the can until I go to the editing room tomorrow. Like that. This was 2007 in the early days of the internet, where it is like, we don't want any extra, any AD, any makeup person leaking the script. And it surprised a lot of people. They were like, so, and I think this is interesting how it has, much like all these space shows, it has kind of comparisons to all these other Westerns and everything. And the fact that they had a courtroom scene is like, how do you defend someone who you can't really mentally defend? Is reprehensible. And it makes me wonder, is like, since there's not really much law abiding here, it's like, how do you even maintain order after a while? It brings up a lot of these cool concepts. I loved how during the siege, how they have Kelly, and if you look up, this guy's played by Ty Olsson, who you'll recognize from just about anything. He's always a heavy and everything, from Planet of the Apes and everything. I love how.
We'll return after these messages.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
You think he's gonna, just side with all the guys who've taken over the ship, and he's just like, yeah, no, I can't do it. I'm gonna just fire at you and let you get away. So all these minor characters, like they all have something to do. Hot Dog was an interesting one because he's played by Adama Betrayer, Edward Olmos's real life son, Bodhi. But I like how on closer inspection, he's kind of the go-to guy for like helping start up some of the ships and everything. He's a gearhead, but he also has a reasonable amount of action. And it's just interesting because I just like how there's a lot of stuff to the pilot stuff. It's not just like the original Galactica where, we're at a view screen and we're shouting orders Star Wars style. Like you get a sense that, I see some people trash some of the CGI on this. I think it still serves the show well because it's done in a documentary kind of way and it's a lot of oversaturated light. I think that's why I go with it versus other shows where you're like, that doesn't look finished,
Now, I think one of the things about the show, rewatch too, is Star Trek especially. They go very, very, very fast, and
So
some of the
fast.
the FTL thing in Battlestar Galactica is so different because they have to use telescopes. We're going to jump here. There can't be any crap in the way because they jump
Telescope
in.
look, yeah. Totally.
Right. They actually talk about during episode, the first major episode is 33, and they talk a lot about how to make those jumps, and they're having to calculate, and they're having to get the astronomers out
That was
and the
a
telescopes.
That was
highlight.
I was looking
incredible.
all over for local track writer Naren Shankar, who later was the head writer on CSI and The Expanse, because he's a big science major. So he was always called on by all these shows, and it's like, nope, they didn't call him in. But can you blame me? Because it is the same deal. It is embracing that world and acknowledging how the stuff works instead of just, well, we won't talk.
Hand wave.
Right,
And
hand wave, yeah.
Hand wave it out.
Doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine having to make a jump? When they lose a few ships because of a bad jump, as like, see,
Oh yeah.
I think this is why people came back to it. That it wasn't too depressing to where you're like, I feel like I've just seen a dozen different fictional holocausts, but at the same time, it also was the whole everyone could literally perish. And
a lot of people did.
There's still be an
That's how the very original one starts. That's the note
Absolutely.
it starts with. Is
There's
the planet being obliterated and then being decimated to just space colonies.
there's an allegory to the story as opposed to who's going to be a Death Star victim. Like there is. I feel like they raised the stakes enough from a screenwriting perspective. You're not just waiting around until you lose interest. So the final tally, apparently, according to Wikipedia, and it's cited from the episode, the final amount of survivors is 39,406.
Yep.
But that was cool how they would change that even in just once a season. Literally, I would see them change it in the theme. So I was like, okay, they do legit respect their audience. It isn't like all these space opera shows we've mentioned where it's like, okay, last season it was 50, now we're up to 800. Okay, got it.
Got it.
Yep.
But
apparently it's a real pain in the ass to keep up
it really
with. What I read.
is keeping up with it.
I got a spreadsheet on Excel this big, just all the colonial, but I read somewhere, and one of the things that they did this, and they really regretted. Ronald D. Moore and Robert Eck, or whatever his name was, they regretted doing it because they're like, oh my God, we have to keep up with this.
Yeah.
David Icke, that's it. And they were like, oh my God, we have to keep
They're
up
really
with this
hysterical in the behind the scenes. I know.
Oh yeah.
Created a monster.
And you'll love this, Gio and Robert. Travis, you were mentioning, free internet where it was today. It's so crazy how the commentary tracks produced for the home media sets were produced back in 2006. And you could listen to it on the official SyFy Channel site.
Yeah.
and they repackaged that for all the DVDs and Blu-rays. But I'm like, man, when in the early days of internet radio, wow, that had to be crazy. Because unless you had recorded the episode, how did you sync that up back then? It kind of was back when people were figuring out all these commentaries.
Universal should just release those as podcasts. Just put them all out there so that people can listen to them while they watch the shows.
You don't necessarily need a visual, but yeah.
And I give you a clear picture of how late I arrived to the picture of sci-fi, just so you understand. I got into the United States in 2009, but I didn't grow up with internet. Internet was a luxury. So, like in third world countries like Dominican Republic,
we are spoiled now.
You have a clone computer that can only run Game Boy Advance games. Like crap.
I still know people who can only their only internet is when they go to the library.
No, exactly. I used to go to cyber
4 out of
cafes,
7 days a week. I'm like,
cyber cafe, and basically pay for 30 minutes of internet, so I can download things on LimeWire and Casa.
Wow.
Learn CDs, so I can watch.
There's
my
no
movies
printer in
MP3s
this
and have
future,
music.
so I wonder where they get all the diagrams and paper. But
and then you got roped in. I'm sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
It was a slow uptake. I think I started really hardcore sci-fi. What do you think, Robert? Like 2005? No, I got here 2009, maybe 2015.
So as soon as it was ended, now you have all the time in the world to binge it. So William did the math here. So the population of the 12 colonies is about 12 billion prior to being demolished. So, man.
Kind of 17th century Earth population.
This is the contrast. How many people are on this Earth now? Estimate.
I think estimate 20 billion.
8.1 billion is the current.
Oh, wow.
According to Worldometer, the one that came up. So sorry, we're 4 billion less. Man,
does that mean we're in the past of Galactica? I don't know. I'm afraid.
It's a good question. So
I'm afraid.
Hey NASA, write it down. I want to be on the list. To Mars, baby. Being a superhuman.
We could go to Mars.
That's why we be really good with AI, because the overlord.
Well, on the nature of the cyborgs and everything. So if this is in the Valverde Aliens Blade Runner universe, and those did crossovers with RoboCop and Terminator, do you think that these Cylons are actually from Skynet, or is that just bullshit fan theories? I don't know.
Well, if you want to really
now that I've opened up that wormhole,
I think the Cylons are like the far future for
because they're definitely inspired, but they're not necessarily part of that.
Maybe the Cylons are the Tesla robots.
Oh, there you go. Elon.
No. I think that the Cylons are too stoic. They probably gotta be the robots from Boston Dynamics.
They're a little slower.
Yeah.
Gonna take us by surprise.
I bet you everybody became a great scientist on this show just by reading Popular Mechanics growing up in the future. Okay, so William, man, you were going to town, my dude. So the population of 150,000 years ago in today's world was estimated to be 300,000 when the fleet arrived in the SOL. Wow. Whoa. Okay.
The solar system, yeah. Our star system. Sorry, I'm getting... And then here's the crazy thing.
We're here to geek out for an hour and a half.
So 150,000 years ago, paleoanthropology is actually a passion of mine, oddly enough. And so prehistory, 150,000 years ago, and I'd like to get into this later, is a weird time period for them to set this when they arrived. You have to remember that there are still some other hominid species alive at this point. Neanderthals are still a successful species in Europe. Modern man had not yet conquered that part of Europe and going in through the Middle East. But so that's the interesting thing. They came and there were still Neanderthals and other hominid lines are running around this planet. Devonians, however you pronounce that, and even the Hobbit species, and even maybe others in Australia. So that's the 150,000 year mark is really interesting. I don't know why they ever settled on that. And I don't have an interview with Ronald D. Moore to be like, you should have said it 12,000 years ago.
The only thing I know is that in the season 2 Blu-ray, he makes very clear he wanted a happy ending. So when people go, oh, he made it up on the spot, they're like, no, he reworded that. He originally had a very grim ending, but that wasn't. Yeah, he didn't say specifically what it was, but during the writer's strike, he took one more look at it and he was like, "I hate everything I've written. I'm going to redo this." So I think I think that's pretty mature compared to other people who are like, "Let's wing it, let's go." So, yeah, no, much like how they showed the different Cylons, it does make you wonder how some of them did not come across some of the caveman era of mankind in some capacity. That you know what? I would actually like to see. That's actually a good segue to Caprica. So, my sister was into this. Me and my uncle weren't really into this. What is your guys' overall take on this prequel series on showing, like the earlier Adama family as well as the creators behind it? What it was like to live on that version of Earth?
I honestly think it's gone too soon.
Okay, yeah, no, that's certainly possible. I think every show deserves at least 3 years instead of just one and done, because sometimes you need a lesser season to get better, or maybe it was a good season and we're just subjective. I don't know. William, you saw that one, or?
Yeah, I saw pieces of it. I did when I did a thing on it. Because I was digging in at one point about I was doing a thing on robotic soldiers, so I did about how the Cylons evolved, and I had to kind of dig into that. And of course, it's got a lot of Terminator into it. They injected a lot of Blade Runner, of course, but Caprica could have set us up, and we could have seen, because there was a lot. This is before the 12 Colonies.
Did you see any of this, Travis, or did you not make time for this one?
I didn't see Caprica.
No,
really?
no, it's fine. No, it's fine.
I'd love to get your opinion, you guys' opinion, because I really haven't seen it, and I don't have. I
could never get into it, but I think and it was interesting how the pilot was kind of the precursor to that. So I will say that was smart marketing. I like to give a positive review to something, regardless of my take on it. It was the unrated cut. They had all these other famous voice actors lined up to it, but they had to cut their parts from it. But it was kind of creepy. Like, without even being horrific or anything, it was just kind of like, here's what's inside their minds. Here's how they think, So, like you say, it was a Skynet kind of look at it. And then they went into, here's these deceiving families. And to your earlier point, Gio, yeah, here's how these elites live. And Travis was mentioning it earlier, how they just kind of have these prejudices. They look at each other like, yeah, I'm this way and you can't change me. So they did kind of show some of the cards and everything. It would have been okay to have it on at around the same time before the prequel shows. I would have loved to have seen more Blood and Chrome, but the movie as itself, it was at least a decent wrap up. It's not like some of those other pilots you watch where you're like, yeah, but this is an incomplete story, so it just leaves me wanting more that I'll never get. Yeah, no, they for years have said, let's reboot it, and I think that's what always confused me about it. I'm like, why? It's already ended. There's no need to reboot it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes a lot more sense if they do the same thing, the same formula they use to create this one. And they do, because the story is so freaking rich, right?
It really is.
You just throw a coin, and wherever it lands, it's going to be a hit.
and you're never looking. It's kind of like, I think the closest comparison to this is a totally different show. I do this now with Ted Lasso, where I am watching a scene, but my eyes are darting in a different direction. Here's what this guy's doing in the background. That's hysterical. And that's why that has to do with that gag that's 2 episodes down the road. Same kind of deal here. Like, this is kind of one of those first shows where you're just like, depending on where you are looking, you are finding all these other, it is literally looking at a manipulative painting in a way where you are, it means so many different things the more you look at it. And then the more you're observing, the more you're finding all these extra details. And I think that is why, like you say, people come back to it. It really is a labor of love. And again, who would have guessed, because for a while, Sci-Fi was kind of the trashy station. And then, they're like, let's shoot in Canada, tax cuts. No one's expecting this to be good.
Being geeky wasn't cool then.
Yeah.
Now it is.
But
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
Now we're here.
One of the things that I was thinking about earlier is, like, for example, Star Trek is kind of doing this, right?
So They've
if
even took some of their cast.
Yeah, if you follow Star Trek from the very beginning, you know, my first experience with Star Trek was Captain Kirk back in the original series. And
oh man, I was one of these guys. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just...
so you notice,
don't get us started on the different captains. It's like apples and oranges. If they were the same person, you know, you don't want 6 copies of the same wind-up toy. You want them.
Yeah. So here's the thing: for a while, Star Trek was Enterprise, and Enterprise was Star Trek. And then all of a sudden, you have like Deep Space Nine, and now you have Voyager. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is the fact that Galactica could have shows that, you know, okay, let's have this show based on this other ship.
Before the Arrowverse, before the Marvel Netflix shows, before all this stuff that's all together, you know.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know. I just and then
before Dick Wolf took over every network.
And with Caprica, I am a fan of getting to know or getting more information or background information on an IP that I like. And Caprica had the potential to providing that for fans. And that's the reason why I said it's gone too soon. Because it has the potential to be so much more than
I love
what
how you had a tech reference in there, IP.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't know what they could have done with the 5th season, but I wouldn't have been against it. It's just, but I think that's what I applaud about it, is just it knowing when to settle down, I guess, because you see so many other shows where like, yeah, that season was just filler. We didn't know when we were ending. And Williams having a Captain Archer in the corner. Yeah, that show definitely took from this one where they were like, let's have our angry reaction to 9/11. Hey.
That's the Johnny Lighting version, not the Eagle Moss. I bought that. Anyway, but yeah, sorry. I got to give a shout out to Enterprise. Enterprise is my favorite live action Star Trek show. And you all can stab me later over that. And no, I don't like the theme
Star Trek is here to make peace. That's what I don't get too. I will see so many people rile up. And I'm like, are you?
That is my wife's favorite.
Super
really
Star Wars guys. Star
smart
Trek's
woman.
Here to be peace.
That is my wife. Don't play around with Captain Archer. That's all I can tell.
Hey, my wife liked Trip Tucker, but I'm not really sure why.
Well, he was a spy before the actual cartoon Archer.
Yeah, that's true. So help me understand something with Caprica. How many episodes? How many episodes do we get?
Around 13.
13? Okay.
I think Gio's still mad that it ended.
Definitely. I mean, Caprica is the one season, and it's made on a way that the ending of the season is when things get started. It's when the real
that is
shit
true.
happens.
There is a lot of stuff.
The very first cyborg ever into which is a consciousness, escape a lab, and that's when he ends.
Yeah, I think it did a good thing of just saying we're going to be different instead of like you don't have to know anything about the other show to exist. And I do wish spinoffs would take a note from that, because I see so many of them doing it and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I haven't seen the other show.
Yep. I didn't know until Robert mentioned that this Caprica was part of Galactica. I would have never guessed it.
Absolutely. And
on my own.
To make any of this depressing stuff entertaining is still an accomplishment. You know, I think Rome is another one. You know, that's another show that HBO kind of just had but didn't know what to do with. And I'm like, you're talking about everything: slavery, you know, marriage, adultery, conquest. Vikings TV show I think has done some similar stuff. Again, talking about the elites and the less fortunate, and how when one intercedes with the other, there's no mercy for one another. You know, it's interesting how, I don't know what it is. I think a lot of people are just, I think many of us know how to make a philosophical kind of storytelling. It's just very hard to lay out and make compelling, let alone interesting. And again, I think so many shows, they just cast too many people, and then next thing you know, after one season, they're like, I don't know what to do with your characters, so you're not coming back, or we're killing you off as a random surprise.
Tasha Yar problem.
That is a perfect contrast. Yeah, just people who are cool and they redeem later. I mean, that is one thing I do like about Star Trek, how it is instead of just acting like this installment doesn't exist, let's fix that problem. Here's the real issue with Spock's half brother and all the other versions of Data. And
you know what show, for example, does a good employment of having a very large cast and being able to outplay them throughout the whole set of seasons? Westworld. Westworld has such a big amount
that definitely
of
doesn't
important
exist
characters.
without this
I'm talking
one.
about more than a dozen people that are like very imperative to the main story.
And the fact is, an
throughout
actor,
all the seasons, they just come out in season 6 and they have their big moment, and they're like, he was in the background all the time.
yeah.
They have their very
How did I not
moment.
see it?
Yeah.
The janitor was behind it all. But even having to realistically play a robot, that is not easy for any actor. How do you relate to that when that doesn't exist in real life? I get that, yes, actor, you're supposed to act, but where do you find the inspiration instead of just imitating, earlier cyborg stuff?
Everybody draws inspiration from Data, I guess.
There is that. There's the Terminator, the Runner. I do like how they clarified. It's like, hey, these Cylons, some of them want to be human, some of them can have kids. We don't know how or why. I think that was interesting to me on this rewatch because it's like, hey, again, much like some of these guys are trying to redeem themselves, not everyone has all the answers in the room. They're trying to figure out how this shit works, all this science. I think any other show would have probably just put it in just for a cheap shock. And they were like, this is happening. And they're showing them all these characters, just these cold opens where they're processing all this, findings. You're like, I don't know what to do with this. Soak in the corner.
I've told Robert many times too, in regards to like Capric example, when it's very different to the main canon of a story. When a director tries to do that, it's a very bold move. And I think it's a 50-50 chance that people are going to hate it or people are going to love it. It has happened all across the filmmaking since the beginning of times. When they grab a classic IP and they give it a spin-off and change a lot of things in the looks, even if it's
Avatar.
Yeah.
Avatar.
That's a good contrast.
Yeah,
technically in the same universe, the Wayland Utundi connection. So yeah, no, but that was true too. Like some of the I haven't heard all these guys actually got along on set. Like I know Katie Sackhoff and company have said that they refer to Edward James Olmos as Uncle Eddie because he babysits all their kids. But when you see him even directing like those 5+ episodes, he kind of like on Stand and Deliver. Like half the time the directors would say, hey, you've done both. You've been in both chairs. How about they follow your lead? And so half the time, like when they were filming it, the crew was actually emotionally getting over 9/11. And so the So Say We All was actually an ad lib. And that just blows my mind. It's just like all these other successful shows. You're like, I thought that was in the script.
That is insane. And I heard about that.
The set life. But I think that's what's cool too. There was a chill set, so they did their even better, as opposed to
you can feel the solidarity on the group.
Yeah, that no one was breaking stuff, coming to set late. See, that's cool. And the fact that some of these guys, like you say, they were unknowns, they got to mature all then and there. Katie Sackhoff was told by her agent, just if you got an issue, probably don't say anything. This is a cutthroat town. You don't want to be called a diva, but she had her own reasons for how she went about things. And I think that is cool. The young Adama guy, I've seen him in other British stuff. And I think all these guys are also, the reason they are so cool is they are cool with being part of an ensemble. It's like, I think that is the best mentality instead of, I will do this, but only if I'm the lead or, the villain.
We have to make choices. Every order we give, every shot we take, could mean the difference between survival and extinction. Each small victory gives us a little hope that the choices we're making are the right ones. The world is over. The fight is just beginning.
I'm sure you guys probably all have your favorite, like, holy shit moments that the show gave us.
Yeah, where do we begin?
Mine is the notes of all along the watchtower start to play through the piano. Like that whole theme starts to change from Starbucks thing into that, and then that leads the final Cylons to reveal themselves to each other. Like I think that might be one of my favorite holy shit moments.
So true, man. this introduced me to Bear McQuarrie. Like, you know, he later again, you know, scored Walking Dead, the Terminator TV show, and the God of War video games, Agents of Shield, and currently doing the Lord of the Rings TV show, which even if you don't like it, I recommend everyone just listen to that soundtrack. Like, he does a perfect tribute to Howard Shore while doing his own thing. But like, yeah, the fact that he did all that piano when she's finding out that guy at the bar actually is her dad.
Oh God.
That's I'm gonna cheat. That's my holy shit moment. But yeah, no, that was I still every once in a while I think I have heard that cover that he has done of Hendrix Watchtower in certain car commercials, or someone's done just as good a job. But yeah, that is just a beautiful, like, if I had to just pick a scene and just show it in a film study class, I would take that scene and say, guys, I want you to make something like that. Because I was at a terrible college, long story short, like, and here's the funny thing that these professors said to me: don't make movies with spaceships, zombies, or hitmen because you can't relate to it in real life. I thought that's the whole point of filmmaking. Take stuff you can't relate and make it real. Make it stick.
Like Robert likes to call it, it's a good thought experiment.
Well, and good call on the music, man. I can't, because it is the right amount of just kind of, I think it in Lord of the Rings kind of got me into kind of that, just Christian almost-esque melodies mixed in with the epic mix of
For me, it was Excalibur. When they did it in 81, Excalibur, you know, where they had the final battle.
And it blends in with all the different sound effects where you're like, whoa. I can't tell if that's, and you're right, he did do Outlander, which Ronald D. Moore
Outlander. That's my wife, read all the books. If you're not watching Outlander, and of course that's Ronald D. Moore who's doing it, and Outlander's one of the best shows on TV.
I think everyone will dig that one. I
love it.
It's very epic, but if anything, I still need to get caught up on For All Mankind. I know Gio and Robert, you guys have done the pilot.
No, not yet.
Not yet? I thought you did.
Saving it. I am saving it.
All right, perfect. Save it. So, long story
like
short,
the good dessert after dinner.
So long story short,
savor.
It's a space force that assembles if Russia had landed on the moon first. That's all I'm going to say.
M16's on the moon, baby, with spacesuits.
Right, and they have guns, and they're astronauts. So that and Man in the High Castle, I think, if anything, Battlestar is underrated. You guys have already hinted at how it made addicting TV very intriguing, and how it was just an unlikely addiction. No one knew what to expect, and it was a pleasant surprise. But yeah, I do feel like when people go to a pitch meeting, they definitely take notes from this. They're like, oh, it's going to blow your mind. It's just as good as a movie.
Can we talk about the visuals? I don't think the visuals on this show, to me, are unique. And if they have ever been done, they're probably being done minimal after the fact. And it's just, I just want to get your thoughts. Everybody's here. Thoughts on
the fact that they filmed on film for the miniseries and then went straight to digital. I think this was the first thing I saw in digital on small screen.
And the camera work and how the angles work and how the lighting works. It's just, it actually adds up to the grittiness of it. But I feel
that all the claustrophobia where you're like, what are they doing in that locker room? Something bad's about to happen.
Not only that, but I wanted to mention earlier, just the scenography and the sets are so complete that you don't need to kill yourself doing CGI and special effects for open setups.
Half the time they're looking at actual reflections of themselves, which works so well for the actual drama where like, oh, that guy, he's just been revealed to be an undercover, bad guy. And
by mainstream media criticizing, it's actually widely known that Galactica in all the space sci-fi.
The most cynical people gave this a pass.
The best sets
so that
ever.
Says something.
They tell Star Wars doesn't stand next to it, Star Trek doesn't stand next to it. Galactica is an animal of its own, and it's actually the best when it comes to best sets for filming.
And how did that come out of 1978 series?
Right?
No disrespect, but Jesus. I mean, I've watched that show. recently, and especially in high def, you start to see the wires. No pun intended. But like, I mean, of course, the Viper design is outstanding.
Not to be
and so is
confused
Flashback.
with the wire.
That's how I felt when
another
Robert
addicting show.
showed me Star Trek 1954, Robert.
Yeah,
And
no,
when you show me Star Trek
and to
1954,
be
that's how
fair,
I felt. Like
to
Williams.
be fair, that there's one where they
Plus.
were so unimpressed with their second season that they redid it in the comics. And I've told Travis about this before, and you guys might have heard of this. Apparently, Dynamite Comics has done some cool comics. I'm holding some
Yeah.
of them here. What's funny is they did a crossover where they had both universes collide, and Peter David wrote it. He's done a lot of these sci-fi tie-ins as well as original content. So I was like, interesting. It was like, if anything, I think communities have gotten over it. I've seen the funny photo that's a meme where the original Starbuck, what's his name?
Hatch. No, not Hatch.
Not Hatch. The other guy.
Dirk.
Oh,
from 18.
Dirk Benedict.
Yeah, Dirk Benedict
The face.
is sharing a cigarette with Katie Sackhoff. It's like, see,
At Starbucks.
yeah, it's so funny.
That's when they met to discuss the characters, and I was like, Starbuck and Starbuck at Starbucks. It's like a bad joke set
Triple
up.
meaning, yeah.
It's
It's really
Inception.
bad, but it's really awesome.
Inception.
Starbucks Inception right there. Starbucks.
Right there.
Starbucks at
Yeah,
Starbucks.
there you go. Inception does not exist
Drinking at
without
Starbucks.
Battlestar. Yeah. Oh man. There's so many things to think from this, and don't get me wrong, I still see some people hate on the ending. I think they just want it did the grimness so well, they wanted a harsher ending, and I'm like, I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like I did with Sopranos, where Tony's got to go take someone out, you know.
I think the only misstep with the ending is that Adama and Ty don't have a goodbye to each other. They don't talk to each other at the ending.
That is true.
That's a beautiful point.
And see, this is why I like doing these. I like saying what we would do different instead of just, it sucked. You know, it's like, so yeah. Ty, after sharing a few more, rounds of liquor with them, he kind of doesn't want anything to do with them. I don't know if it's just because they did the flashback showing where he first met his Cylon wife, Ellen. I don't know if they just felt they had exhausted it. That is a good point. I don't know why they just said, let's just stop having scenes with them.
One of the things that I kind of liked about the show that not many shows do, and I will, it's kind of like a shame because I really enjoy is the little nuggets that they give you from other sci-fi.
You do love your nuggets, but these are the dark chocolate almond kind. These are very good.
So, like for example, there's a weapons locker, 1701D.
Oh,
that's the Enterprise. There's the fire,
and you can even see it. You see it in a few shots, believe it or not, along with the Falcon.
The Enterprise itself is shown as one of the ships.
Yeah.
So
they got pretty cute, and you can also see the Firefly.
The Firefly,
Aridity, because it was the same visual effects company.
Goes past when she gets her cancer diagnosis. She's in the doctor's office, and you see it go by in the window. I was like, looking there going, oh, I know what that is.
You even see it in the miniseries opening when the whole planet's getting decimated. Like it's one of the it's there. You see a few of those ships getting away. So
the time that I watched it, I was like, hold up a second, is that what I think it is?
Yeah. What the hell?
When you watch that, you could almost hear the country guitar going on.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I wish many shows, and if you listen to our show, you know that's why I like this so much.
Quality is a requirement for Robert.
The whole idea for our show is to bring all sci-fi together, like every IP coming, and that's why I love when shows do this. They do, it doesn't have to be a long thing. It could be something like here, where it's like tiny, or maybe when we're too fast. But they pay homage to other sci-fis to kind of like unite the sci-fi community together. And I think
it did. I think it made a lot of people take it more serious as opposed to pew pew. Yeah, I mean, kind of, you can argue this with other genres. Like I have to remind people, hey, there was other stuff for action before we got car chases. There's other stuff for horror where it was just kind of more psychological or just a giant monster before, it became, hey, let's have serial killers, chopping people up. It's hard to kind of explain to people the different subgenres in a way. And this is kind of, like you say, like This is going beyond just the military and space and cyborg stuff. Like, it's also talking about future societies, and I love how they don't even have they don't have escape pods in this universe either. Like, they are pretty much, we stand our ground or we run. It's like,
and I think, yeah, I definitely think one of the things that, like you're saying, all these different things made the show unique. They talked about religion, and I was compelled. Like,
right?
oh, what about
it's usually
the
a taboo
scrolls of
subject at
Pythia?
this time, and yeah,
Right. Was Athena real? Because she jumped off, and then they go to Cobalt and they get the direction. And I was like, so what's on Cobalt? What is the story there? Cobalt like fascinates the shit out of me because what is going on there? And
I bet
then
you the teens
Baltar.
who watched this just for the action wanted to know
Yeah.
more. It what every character
Exactly.
mattered, even the character who was annoying. You wanted to know more about. It was like, I want to know how Ellen and Teague got together and why the hell they put up with each other's shit.
What was Carol's wife's name? The Callie. Callie's arc is so tragic and so
who's gonna care for that kid now? I'm like, what?
Yeah. Oh, I felt bad for her, even though she's weird in real life. If you haven't read that, please do.
That is a good point. That's like the only blemish, personally. It's like she had a friend who was like a businessman being accused of trafficking, but the actress herself hasn't done anything bad. But it is one of those where it's like that's the only scandal we're even going to remotely connect to this whole thing. Everyone else pretty much has a pretty cool, clean record.
I never really thought about what you guys were saying. Like some of these background characters that would have been nothing on Star Trek, right? They're not all the bridge crew. There's some people in this show that are just
dead in 3 episodes, or recurring stuntmen, or person but only 3 seasons later they gave them a name because they were recurring extra. Yeah.
I didn't think about that before we started talking. I thought, wow, that is really cool. But
I mean, just looking at some of these other shows that were on for years, like, again, Sons of Anarchy, Oz, and everything, I think this show is as much a crime show in a way, even though it's in space and everything, because you were having to, again, everyone is kind of putting each other on trial on the spot. It's like, what do I believe? Why do I do what I do? I mean, Adama gives so many people get out of jail free cards. He's kind of a progressive guy, especially if you know the man himself, Eddie. And it's just was interesting how he kind of he didn't have a tough love approach, but he definitely had a, one more, remark from you, and you're going to be sharing that cell with that thing I don't respect. And he pretty much, he's not a nuke it all and everything. He is a very careful guy. And to the earlier point that you guys made on showing how the science works and how they got to navigate the charts, I like how he was about that as well. He is, I mean, the fact that he's got a message in a bottle, that is a throwback to Lewis and Clark. Well, every time he's having his breakdowns for the many tragedies he suffered, I thought that was, again, that's not only Ronald D. Moore and David Icke's signature, but it was also cool. Just like, yeah, he's an old school guy. Get your hands dirty. He's a gearhead. Figure out how it works, instead of just, what do you got for me? Well, make it so, he's not the ungrateful captain who orders the doctor or scientist around. Like, he legit wants to know how it works. Like, the many times he talks to Boomer, who we later find out is Athena, he's like, I trust you. I don't respect you because you're a machine. It's nothing personal. Since you're still wearing that armor, I'm going to give you a chance. You're part of the fleet as far as I'm concerned. It has so many illusions. It's like when you see a kind of like a conservative pastor who says to his son, hey, I don't agree with your sexuality preference, but you're still my son. It was a weird kind of acknowledgement. I am prejudiced, but I will tolerate you. It's weird seeing that dilemma. And it's like, I see, but I think, again, like you guys have already hit the nail on the head. It's like, this is not your uncle's killer robot show. It is not. And it does go deeper than Space Above and Beyond, and even Captain Power at showing a future Space Force. It's not just, we got a cool cosplay.
Captain Picard never told Riker that if you don't leave the room, you'll be dead. After what happened when Starbuck said, I didn't, Zach didn't pass basic flight, and I passed him anyway.
When he gives Starbuck that order, he's like, by the way, this is off the record. you're going to be my spy, and you're going to kill Admiral Kane if she does this.
Oh God, yes, I forgot
I
about
was
that.
like, how do you? That's the beginning of season 2. How do you begin a season that way? And I think this was the start. This was when we were getting more people. We get addicted to a show while at the same time we're breaking a sweat. I was like, I feel very uneasy. I want
wasn't
to
sure
know
that was
more.
going to end.
I don't know whose side I'm on. Is Kane really that bad? Oh, she's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And when I find out more about her, everyone should watch that Razor thing. And kudos, because Michelle Pfeiffer, again, someone who has worn so many hats, been in everything. Escape from LA, New Amsterdam, is like
True Blood.
True Blood. There you go. Yeah, she's one of the gypsies, right?
No, she's like the
not gypsies.
Yeah, I forget.
She's one of the not gatekeepers, just one of the overseers. Yeah, and yeah, it is like for someone who has been so many personas and so many guest spots, it's like that could not have been an easy role to do, because when you're, and I think much like Teague, we shouldn't like her, but we have to understand why they are such fear mongers, why they are such all about their power, and they'll abuse it if that keeps them in power. And I think that was a good segue before we got to Zarek being a tyrant and saying, guess what? What remains of our constitution applies, but not to me. I'm going to kill my entire staff if they disagree with me, because I'm just this impatient now. I will do anything.
Yeah, the show, I mean, Ronald D. Moore is, kind of an interesting character and who he brought out. And it's like a guy restored for
Really
Star
nice
Trek,
guy.
right?
If you ever see an interview with him, you're just like,
oh,
man,
yeah.
This dude is just so down to earth. He's not like one of those writers where he talks real fast or anything. He's like, yeah, no, I get you, dude.
Yeah.
You're seeing
And yet,
cool.
he wrote this coming off of Star Trek. And that's what's shocking about it, because, like, the characters are so different and fleshed out, and they change. And that's interesting. Not just both, they evolve. I mean, Rosalind is a really interesting character, and the actress who played her, I'd only seen her in Dances with Wolves. I'm from Oklahoma originally. That's required watching. But it's a
her name was like Walks with a Fist.
Stands with a Fist.
Stands with a Fist. Yeah.
Stands with a Fist. I can't remember her.
You'll really like her on that continuation of the Closer Major Crimes. It's
I heard she was
good mixture of action, mystery, and crime. It was one of those. It was good at keeping you in suspense, even though you already know who the killer or bad guy is.
Mm-hmm.
You now had those last 20 minutes. Why did they do what they did? And she was interesting because it's like on that role, which she totally got because of Battlestar. It's like, hey, you can carry a cable show. It's just like she is the bureaucrat. She talks real softly, but the minute you stop listening, she starts raising her voice. You will listen, and I love how here, same kind of deal here. She is very reserved, but the minute you are not, back and forth arguing, she, is going to put her foot down and say, listen up.
Yeah. And she's a woman an actress that pulled off a lot of roles, and even suffering with cancer. And I don't know what her personal experience was, where she dove from that.
But that would be so hard to do.
Horrible to do, yeah. And the guy who plays Baltar is probably my favorite to watch.
And
lose her hair. I mean, and she was wearing a wig toward the end, at the one point. And then the scene where she dies on Earth, spoiler, with Adama there in Africa was, I don't know. We're kind of talking about moments that really made us,
at their cabin.
I have to say,
found,
Oh yeah, the cabin he built her. I still think the rescue of the Galactica, when I thought the Galactica was over, and I thought, it's going to be Battlestar Pegasus, and the Pegasus comes in, and it just wrecks everything. I was like, oh, slow down, make it slower, and you're just sitting there watching what the Colonial Fleet built, and this Battlestar comes in and destroys it and rescues this. And, the Galactica's falling apart, and he goes, and Adama looks at everything and goes, it's been an honor. And I was like, uh-oh. We're about to lose everyone, and the show's about to get real. The blood is everywhere, and then the Pegasus comes in, and it's still one of the greatest moments. And I know it's cheesy to say because it's the moment if you watch the YouTube comments on the video, they're hilarious. But to me, and I always thought, the Pegasus itself, from a technical standpoint, is really interesting versus the Galactica when they're built, how they're built. That's geeking on the technical
That was a
manual
good
stuff.
point. They made each
Yeah.
of them stand out, so it wasn't confusing
Very much.
which one's getting demolished. I mean, the Cylon ship. It made sense. Make it be the biggest one in the fleet, and I think that's what I dug about the main leader. And then you cast Dean Stockwell, a man who's Quantum Leap, Air Force One, and
so creepy
no
too.
stranger to B
Yeah.
movies. But yeah, he's a mixture of a mad scientist mixed in with I loved how they just kind of showed how insecure he was. He's like, I don't know what to do once I've killed everybody.
Yeah.
And then the
He's just-
fact that he realizes I can't have it all. And I see a lot of people who have a dispute with that. They're like, they thought it was lame that he committed suicide. That made sense to me, especially if you
totally.
watch the plan beforehand, because he's like, hey, he has no game plan. He, for lack of better words, he is a Leroy Jenkins when how he has approached this.
And Oedipus Rex. Let's not forget that. part
Oedipus
of it.
Rex. That is a good.
I don't want to go any more than that. I'm still
No, that
therapy
makes
about
sense
that.
too. He is a one way kind of guy. He knows how to get a goal, or no, he doesn't know how to get a goal, but that's all he wants. He wants the goal. He wants to.
You just call it a Genghis, like a Mongol king.
Well, you can make a Genghis Khan comparison if you want. Yeah, he's a tyrant, but it's like he's just like slowly coming off at the seams. He's no different than the various spaceship he's on. Like the minute it stops working, he just freezes in motion and is like, I don't know what to do. I need a game plan. I need an exit strategy. And
I think that's really interesting. You bring up the Battlestar development as coming from someone who studies a lot about
yeah, dude, you have done a
starships.
great job, like from looking at the trading cards to the various reps, and I've been the same thing too. I always want to know about the armor and complements. I'm that kind of nerd. I love versus stuff. It's like,
but it's such a weird take on a ship, and then the humanoid that
like the
jumps ship
Doctor
and
even.
talks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really incredible, some of the stuff in that, and it's like I want so much to interview some of the people that worked on some of the production design.
I
So I
think
want
we
to
can
know,
get a bunch of them. I would love to do probably the unsung guy. I would love to interview Hilo.
Oh, he was so good.
Athena, and he is like, out of all those unnamed Canadian guys, like anytime I would see him in a movie or show, I'm like, I know that guy. He's on Battlestar.
Yeah,
And
his
same thing-
chin and jaw should have been its own IMDb
there you
page.
go. But like Bruce Campbell, there you go. But him and the Lieutenant Gaeta, who
Oh,
they
Donald-
both show up in Man of Steel, and it's like a weird
Yeah,
moment
right?
where they're in the same scene together. and-
yes, I thought the same thing when I saw it. I was like, "Is this in the Battlestar verse?" There you go. Yeah, and I've seen him play so many relentless bad guys, everything. The Continuum show, Taken show. Yeah, anytime he shows up, and I think he can actually do.
I'll never
stunts
forget.
in
He
martial
pulled that
arts.
scene off where he had to shoot his own wife to get her to go back and rescue their daughter. God, that was wrenching. I watched that scene. I was not really long ago. And I was like, and he did that. I was like, oh my God. And
then she doesn't want to talk to him, and for good reason. She's like, "You thought that was me? And what
Oh,
part
yeah.
of, when do I ever act like that?" And
God.
I love how it kind of just, again, this feels like an espionage show half the time, just showing people who, I mean, Homeland, I think, does a similar good take on this, is like just showing the toll on an operative. And if anything, I think that's why it rings so true to so many people. Like, you're not worried about the various plot twists. People want to talk about the different, how it shows the quarters. And like you said, Jayo was talking about the art direction. Like, it does so good at just making you feel like you're in this scene with the character instead of just, oh, that was a cool camera shot.
One thing I wanted to bring up that you mentioned, and it's something about Blade Runner that I don't think the Blade Runner itself, maybe 2049 did, but Battlestar borrowed it and did so good, was the paranoia of who's a replicant, who's not.
We
and
can't coexist.
Exactly.
That's not an option.
And I know Edward Turns almost is like, okay,
Add as many Easter eggs as you can. We're going to use the
Right.
same guns.
even the blaster, the original.
It's a
before
skin job.
The skin job. I was like, oh my God.
Geeking. And I saw the Blu-ray, like in bold letters, it says Colonial Marines Dispatch. Like, so they embrace the Wayland Yatunde Valverde connection.
Of course, they borrowed the same tactical vest from SG-1 in Atlantis, because I was
Right.
like, oh, I know where you got that from.
Canada.
You know, yeah, the good old Canadian, and they got the 5.7s, and they had to get rid of the P90s because Stargate Atlantis was using them, and they're
Oh,
like,
really?
okay, we need. That's why they had to get the Beretta
So they
CX4
stole
9
Mike
millimeters.
Todd instead.
Yeah, then they got the
One of the other actors. But
yeah.
same deal here. Like, anytime you see a crossover with some of these actors, I do like how they're not playing the exact same kind of heavy. Like, some of them they're playing grunts. Some of them are also just playing, hardy har guys. But man, if there's anything they mastered was the holy shit look. I mean, Travis was talking about earlier, what's the best holy shit moment? But like, everybody's so good at just that.
Oh yeah.
Instead of just looking intense, the whole I am so fearful of what's about to happen, and I gotta hold it together just so no one else, tries to discharge me as, and take over command.
Yeah, I was surprised the first time I watched it. I was like, oh, this is what, if replicants and all this kind of happened, there's no void contest, and Baltar tries to make a Cylon detector. But I
That
was
was
just
a
shocked.
very interesting subplot. Is like,
Oh yes, and then he nukes, and there goes
and he's
Cloud9.
so paranoid, and then he realizes, oh, but this incriminates me too. Now I gotta dispatch this. Is like, well, yeah,
I love him.
You can't have both.
Yeah, Baltar's great.
He totally is.
Fantastic.
And I see so many people doing the whole I love him, I hate him. It's like, here's the thing. He starts off as a lost cause, and then it's so funny how he finds all these other followers he never expected to follow him, but they are the only ones keeping him up. So yeah, he is an interesting tragedy. I would give the Oedipus Rex award to him too. Like, he is
Yeah.
You have to, it kind of makes you think of all the infamous billionaires and sports stars who get kicked off of Twitter and everything, get canceled and everything. Same kind of deal. Like, when I see a D-list movie actor who says a comment that's clearly out of jealousy, is like, yeah, it's the same deal. Like, I can't admit that I suck, but I gotta embrace it too at the same time. And then when he's actually trying to do good, it's even funnier how people are like, nah, man. So because he has been so deceptive this whole time, when he is actually sincere, he's not embraced. And so then he has to find someone who he can take advantage of and actually do something good with.
Jack Sparrow effect.
Oh,
exactly.
Oh man. Yeah,
Yeah,
he could be a dictator on his own planet at this point, I think. And
oh yes.
what's funny
when
is
he was on New Caprica and they pull back and he's on Colonial 1, he's got like a harem. I was just like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, this is what season it's going to be. Okay, we're here. All right,
And
all
then
right.
it's even funnier when number 6 actually legit gets captured, and he's having to actually embrace her. He's like, okay, you're not in my mind. You're real.
Talk about twist when they show him.
Yeah,
from
him in
number
her
6.
mind.
Yes, that was
a
weird.
cool
I was like,
thing.
what?
Yeah. And the fact that he's in so much doubt. It's a good allegory for brainwashing.
Yeah.
You forget who you are when you've been taken advantage of for so long. I love how when he's being interrogated by those Cylons at first, he's like, "You're not a Cylon. Here, let's show you." Like, waterboard. Yeah, see, if you were a Cylon, you wouldn't be reacting to that. You'd be able to endure. You'd be faking it.
Yeah, I think that his character is one of the most flashy additions to the whole set.
Totally. How do you go
I mean,
from Bridget Jones' Diary to this hit show?
not
and
only
then all these
that,
other
but like the
British
scenes
TV?
where he's like in this plane of reality, and then poof, he just jumps into another plane of reality where he's having those inner.
And they do that with Adama
It's
Jr.
creepy
as
as
well.
hell, and it's beautifully done.
It is, and I wanted to see some of those Canadian
And it's a
regions
great-
where they're sunbathing and
Oh,
swimming.
yeah.
They looked amazing. Yeah.
There in Quebec, probably. But the funny thing about it too is it's a beautiful way and very sophisticated for them to bring the inter logos of him to show
Right?
you his real motives, without having to talk.
Totally. In his
it's
mind, he
perfect.
is Julius Caesar kind of by the end. But
Yeah.
then when they finally on Earth, yeah, it's so funny. He's like, I didn't expect to be back on here. I thought this place was gone for good.
Again, he's just like Jack Sparrow. I have a jar.
When the Cylons are using him to take over the Earth in season 3, I thought that was
Yeah, the New
cool. How
Caprica.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a great conundrum, and a
he
good
wants it
question
all. He
mark.
doesn't want any bloodshed, but he wants to yield the
Yeah,
results and keep taking
you
advantage of
see,
people. Yeah.
the stoic mentality tells you that a friend to all is a friend to none. You know,
Oh, that's true.
And his constant neutralism is like you're fighting to save your own ass, your own species.
You're
And
right.
You kind of you turn your back
But
on them.
when you lie,
sometimes.
he buys his own BS after a while. He's like, no,
Yes,
I'm not.
yes.
And then I love how he shoots his aide at one point. He's like, stop talking. Oh no, I didn't expect to,
Absolutely.
have actual repercussions. Now, I could use your advice. Don't die, don't die. And it's like, it's not darkly comedic, but it is almost the whole just, oh shit, it's getting
But
real.
then at the end, he decides to become a farmer like his dad because he's from the farming colony.
right.
And he goes, and he starts crying in number 6. He goes, I'm going to be a farmer like my dad. And I was like, and I have to say, I cried a lot during that last episode. I won't lie to y'all. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful callback to all that. And then, of course, the very, very end when they kind
Number
of
6 is
occupy.
having to embrace humanity.
Yes.
And like you say, Teague is coming to terms with everything, and he's just pretty much like, I'm gonna just get drunk because no one wants to be around me. If anything, I mean, some people felt like Starbucks' conclusion wasn't enough. I felt like I got everything I needed. It's like, yeah, she's part of the final five.
Yeah.
And somehow she got separated from the whole thing during the switcheroo, but that's what happens when you're a saboteur. You stumble along the way when you're coming back. And I mean, if anything, they did a good job with just all of them, just like the whole Athena Boomer thing, just like Grace Park. This was like her first big role, and just she was so good at just kind of emoting is like, hey, whatever I was here for, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm here to kill people. I don't want to do that. It's again, it is a spy show at heart. It's like what I'm here to do. I'm too attached to everybody. It's not going to pan out. I can't betray them all now. Forever.
I think the end of the show has really stuck with me, especially currently. And I've been thinking a lot about, all this has
Anyone else
happened
would have
again.
had a new alien race take over or something,
Yeah,
and it would have been
something.
like, what?
No, it's a bold choice. And I thought, and especially when Caprica and Baltar, or their, angels, he doesn't like when you call him that.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Fantastic.
It's nicknames, and it's like when
God's plan. But they're walking down the street, and she goes, but does this happen again? The law of averages. And they're having this discussion, and it's kind of giving me smoke because I've carried that phrase along with me a lot. This has happened before, and this happened again.
Wait, which phrase?
So when they're walking down the street in New York, and they're talking about mitochondrial Eve, right? They've got the they've got the Ronald D. Moore's reading.
Just barked, and it's in the
they're all
finale.
gone, and they pull back to New York, and
flashback.
Right, and Ronald D. Moore's reading the issue of National Geographic.
A disclaimer for
mitochondrial Eve.
viewers: make sure you do not watch this with your phone.
Whoops.
You will be able to tell when there's a flashback, but if you're not paying attention, you're going to be very confused. You're going to be like, "Wait, I thought they're already gone." It's a flashback.
It's a flashback.
Notice the colored tints; it's a little different. That's your giveaway. Yeah,
it's something that stuck with me. There are some endings to some shows you don't think about, but Who Shot JR? Them arriving on Earth and abandoning everything, and then becoming our ancestors, and some of their phraseologies, their concepts built the mythology that we built our entire civilization in the classical sense. And I was left haunted, and I don't want any more answers. Like, I don't want to know who Starbuck is. I just want it to be the way it is. Don't ruin it. Don't say anything else.
That's so true.
I just want it to be the way it is.
Let's make it work.
What if that's a cool allegory to what we know as the
everything? This is the Red Scare in some ways. Yeah,
it's a great connection, actually. Very subtly done.
The Americans totally tackled similar stuff like this. It's like, okay, we start off as Russian sleeper agents. We don't want to do this shit anymore. We want to be Americans. And
I think one of my favorite character evolutions throughout the series was Sam Anders, because he goes from sports star, soldier,
starts off as a badass,
then he's just kind of Starbucks
They kind of give him the
trophy
red shirt
husband, and then does he
treatment.
become a pilot for a little while, I think.
They kind of have him be the guy who gets beat up every other episode after a while, but not in a formulaic way.
Once he becomes a Cylon, and then
yes, he can't deal with it.
His ending is my, I think, favorite thing about the show. It's one of my favorite heroic moments when he flies the
remember when
fleet.
Remember when Starbuck is giving him that pep talk? She's like, if I find out you're one of them, you're dead to me. And then what a big twist. She finds out, oh, I'm one of them too. And he's like, I'm still here. I'm still here. I never left you. You left me, but I'm here. But yeah, no.
But he gets such a heroic ending.
Yeah.
It's so great.
And that actor is another one, much like Hilo. I see him. I'm like, Michael Trucco. But it is interesting. You see him at first, and you don't expect this intellect of Morm. You think, like you say, oh, he's the guy next door. He's the football jock, and then it's so funny how he also plays into the whole I don't expect to be this big a badass. I'm just good at using grenades, and But when he and holy shit moment number 2, when he and Adama Jr. are having to rescue people and get off that planet before that airstrike. Man.
Oh, the algae planet.
No matter how many times you watch it, you are expecting it to be a different outcome each time. Like, he's going to knock Junior out and do it his way. But he respects the chain of command. But at the same time, he's going to tell you you're wrong. And it's not to be, it's not to win the argument. It's just like, I politically disagree with you. I can rescue all these guys in 5 minutes if you let me. 20 at the most. But yeah, no, that is true. He does have a good just send off, which is so wild because when he's first introduced, you're almost expecting him to just again disappear into the background because there's too many characters.
Yeah.
That would have actually been criminal had we gone a whole episode and not talked about him. We almost did.
Almost did.
I can't believe it.
We haven't talked about Lucy Lawless's character, but
this was a good comeback for her. You go from Xena, then you do others. She's done sitcoms and every stuff after that. But I think this role made everyone take her a little more serious. It's like, see, I can do drama. I'm on. She and number 6 were both on Burn Notice as recurring villains. Yeah, it's like, that this was her kind of way of just saying, hey, you think Baltar's in charge? Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. I'm pulling as many strings too for the main Cylon guys, and I like how she is able to turn on the main Cylons as well. Like, she's the only one who can get the final word because she's just better at weighing the odds and saying, no, we'll be eliminated. So again, I mentioned First Wave. That was a similar show with an alien invasion. And this show does, I don't know what it is about Canadian sci-fi. They're able to make you take the sci-fi race just as serious as the humans. And I don't think it's just the human actors doing a good job. I do think they stage it so well. You take it just as serious as even the computers in the background that are beeping and scanning everyone. It's just... kudos to them choosing the documentary style. I know that was the only note Ronald D. Moore gave his filmmakers, like, make it look like something actually happening in real time. And they're like, okay, we're going to do a documentary style and just zoom in like a camcorder. And it's like, we're looking at something voyeuristically. Like, we shouldn't even be seeing this, but here we are. It's like one of them had a good line. Is like, we were the cameramen in outer space.
Yeah.
Here's what it looks like if I'm on the hull of a ship and I'm seeing it get torn apart by a giant. And I think that's what's even scarier in a way. These Cylon ships aren't controlled by an actual robot. It's all like one giant robot.
It's a living ship. It's an organism.
Yeah. and so you can't even count it. I mean, if you were to do a kill count for some of these guys, like Sam and Starbuck rack up a good dozen kills, but there's no point in counting any of the fighters they blow up because those are not, like actual like.
Well, think about Scar and talking about fighters. Like when Starbuck recovers that one and pulls out all the guts, I was like, well, that's different. I was
That was
surprised.
good too.
And then there was Scar that kept getting reborn, and it was after them in that really fantastic episode with Kat and the
Yeah.
Who's the Top Gun. That was they were going after the beer stein, or
had a good evolution too.
Oh, yeah.
I liked how 1 minute she's jumping on, much like Gallon and Teague with, let's space out silence, and the next minute she's more reserved, getting injured and blaming Starbuck for everything. But I liked how she was just kind of, if Starbuck doesn't do it, she's gonna do her own masculine kind of tomboy tase, like, oh no, we're gonna kick their ass,
and then
we're gonna do
her
it my way.
descent. Yeah, her descent, and then the sacrifices she makes. I was shocked at.
Yeah, she and Skulls perish in the
Yeah.
final episode, and the way that happens, it totally cuts you off guard. Like, whoa, no. That they had a game plan. They said how they were gonna, enter the main Cylon ship and take it down. It's like, oh, but Plan B's not working either. It's like,
I just wanted someone to say ramming speed so bad when they were crashing into the colony. I was like, ramming speed. I was like, come on, it was
Finish
right
him.
there.
Yeah.
And they like slam into us. Like, this is why I love Galactica so much, because it was just so like
It's somehow
visceral.
You know how any other movie or show you can kind of parody and anything? It's very hard to do any riffing during something like this. It's just because you take it serious. It's
You really do.
any other movie or show, you can kind of joke about a line that you predicted, 5 minutes earlier. Like, I can't do it with this one. I can't. I can't make fun of even a graphic shot that I might not agree with. I can't. It's so mature. It's so well handled. You can do it with anything else where they weren't at their best hour or it was 50-50. Like this one, it's given 1,000% every outing. It's really good.
I'll be honest, there were a few times when I watched a show, when they were on Caprica and they were stuck, I was like, this show is going to just go into a morass and it's going to be over. They're not, but then it's like, you're like, keep wanting to go and keep wanting to go. And then, of course, the Adama maneuver, the freedom of the plane, you're waiting for that moment.
Not the Kobayashi Maru, the Adama.
The thing falling, I'm like, wow, you wouldn't see this on Star Trek, would you? And then all of a sudden it
How about when he
works out.
first uses Athena? Like, it's like, we're going to have you hack into this ship.
Oh,
and if you
God, I
don't do
forgot
it,
about that.
I'm going to shoot you on this deck. And I love how everybody's in there. They're already insecure about having a Cylon on the same deck as where they're operating everything. And
I'll never forget when she shot him on the
right. And so this is kind of his payback. It is like, okay, nothing personal, but I am going to kill you because you tried to kill me, and I'm making a simple request: hack into their infrastructure, demolish them, so we can get out of here.
I remember.
It's just ballsy. It's like, what?
Oh yeah.
I thought he's not the kind of guy. He doesn't want you even just in a jail cell. And when he's in a jail cell, unlike anyone else, where they're just playing dead or waiting for a guard to get too close so he can knock you out. Like, I love how during the mutiny he goes for the first weak guard, caps him, takes his machine gun, and then says, "Here's what we're gonna do, gents." And it's like, it's a cool, again, maneuver as opposed to all these other guys who just get lucky because they're the hero. He is instantly like, where's the nearest weapon, or who's the, not the sharpest tool in the shed. I know you because I trained you myself. You're not that great at thinking, and I need to get my future wife, the president, out of here. I love it. He is just as good as the Cylons at surveying everything in there.
Yeah.
He is. And instead of just, I got bigger stones than you. And no, it's not about might. It's a mind game to him just as much as all the killer bots on this show. Yeah, it's, this has been such a delight, all because I think I saw the light bulbs just kind of coming on.
Oh yeah.
Remember that. Would anyone care to promote what they got coming up? Travis, you got no shortage, man. And I have learned so much from Galgo 13 and some of the other anime adaptations that I forgot were anime adaptations. I was like, yeah, that was a manga, wasn't it? Again, anyone who doesn't check it out, Real Comic Heroes, he's got the epic voiceover and awesome Kevin MacLeod music every time, but he really does. If you want a cool breakdown of all your favorite comic book adaptations and why they still resonate, and he's got the perfect amount of wit and humor, it mixed in with the psychology of these badasses. I'll let you say more. It's your show.
Well, thank you for that build up. No, yeah, I do Real Comic Heroes. We review comic book movies, and then I'm also doing a Movies by Minutes podcast, which
Such a good collective. Still a thing, guys. Still a thing.
Yeah, I'm going through every minute of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Over on Minute of Thieves.
Will's geeking out. He's like, "Hello, tell me more."
And once upon a time, I did Watchmen Minute and reviewed all 186 minutes of Zack Snyder's Watchmen.
Nice. So you had
Wow.
experience prior to it, and
yeah,
I love.
Nice.
Oh, Gio's geeking out. He's got one of the best trade paperbacks on there. The logo. Yeah, no, and it's not easy. You know, I have guest starred on Minute podcasts. It's the same kind of thing where, yeah, you got to be able to watch the scene multiple times. It's like, what did I learn from this? What is this foreshadow
of stuff contained within a single minute of
stuff that doesn't mean anything
film.
on the first 10 watches that actually means something now?
Yeah.
No, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for the outcome. As a disclaimer, guys, it is the theatrical cut, not the director's cut. So
yeah,
if you want to watch along with the extra scenes of Christian Slater being a jock, you can do that. But this is not. We're going into the raw and nitty and gritty with Alan Rickman. Fun fact: Morgan Freeman got appreciated by the Republic of Islam for his portrayal.
Nice.
As that warrior.
That's interesting.
They even made
I
an
can see
action
that.
figure of him in the cast. So pretty intense for a one-shot movie. You don't really see that with as many blockbusters, like unless it's like a giant franchise where they make toys of every character.
Well, you know, they repurposed the Ewok Village, right?
Yeah.
For that thing.
Did
I
they
heard it's
really?
actually
Yeah.
It's
The England
and it's-
sets on Pinewood.
Mhm.
No,
Not
the
Pinewood.
toys.
The toy.
Oh, the toys. Oh, the Kinner.
The Endor Village became the
sweet
Sherwood Forest playset.
Best Sean Connery cameo ever, by
Friar
the way.
Tuck was a Gamorrean guard.
Oh, sweet.
Oh my God.
Fun
Because I
fact,
know that
played
Retro
by-
Blasting did that. They did a comparison between the two, and Retro Blasting
they?
did that.
Fun
That was
fact,
really good.
the Friars. You remember the actor who plays him?
Yeah, Michael
McShane from the British who's like
McShane, yeah.
But I remember when I first saw that, I'm like, I know that guy.
Well, that's why he was on the show on the movie, because he was in England doing Whose Line, and he was just looking for extra work. And they were casting in England, and
pivotal moment.
He was already over there, so
makes sense, man. All right, Robert, Gio, man, what epic stuff do you got?
Well, we for all of you out there who have actually
Always
no,
busy, always got something big.
we have taken a break.
A little bit,
so
briefly.
we are coming back on March 2nd. So we have great things coming up in the pipes.
Sweet. Any hint at what kind of sci-fi will be explored, or?
Well, only for this show, and this is something that we don't do. I never tell what is coming up next. That's like a big secret.
Well, we give hints. We give hints.
But for this
Does it
show,
involve a ring? No.
For this show, I'm going to tell you that we are reviewing the foreign movie called Cyber She. That the very first episode that would be released on March 2nd.
Cyber She.
And it is a Japanese film. When you watch it, it feels like you're watching anime. But it's
what's it called? Cyber Sheep?
Cyber She.
Like sheet as in sheet of paper?
Like, no,
Oh,
like
she, like female.
like she is, she's hot.
Oh, Cyber She. Okay, yeah, got it. Got it. All right.
Yeah,
Got
great.
it.
Great film. I didn't know Gio. I honestly went in there thinking that Gio was gonna bash it, and it was it's good.
From 2008. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
A lonely university student develops a romance with an interesting woman who turns out to be a cyborg from the future.
Yep.
6.9 out of 10. All right.
Come with me if you want to live.
Come with me if you want to live. Ah.
There is
the chopper.
No Austrian accents this whole time. I couldn't believe it.
Like a good neighbor.
There you go. That's right. He did have that. Oh my God.
There is a
love him.
Terminator callback on that.
What's that?
There's a Terminator callback on that film too. Remember?
Oh,
Gio?
Because
Really?
of the time travel.
I almost feel
They went hard on the landing with one fist position.
you know how the Terminator comes back from the future?
Yeah,
And
he's like crouched, like with one fist in the floor.
the lightning ball and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
So much.
That's
Yeah.
exactly how she comes back from the future. I almost felt like putting the soundtrack for Terminator.
Where do you find these obscure movies?
Really good film. I recommend it. I actually have a copy on Voodoo.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Cool. Okay. Billy, what do we got for Future War Stories blog?
So I'm still working on my first podcast. I have 5 in the pipe. I'm still editing. They're basically yeah, they're going to be. I need a better voice. My best friend, she has a great voice, and so I've been telling her, I said, "You're going to read for me." And she goes, "I can't read your script. It's got too many typos in it." I'm like, okay.
Hey,
So
at least you're critical. You're like, you know what you want, how you
I
want
know.
it. You just gotta figure out how you want to say it. And that's a good start.
So still doing our I recently deleted all the social media, but I'm Future War Stories is still around. I recently did a Broken Promises series on Star Trek Enterprise, what would have been season 5, 6, and 7.
And predictions of a future show. Nice.
Yeah, and
It's
I've been
always fun
listening
to do that with any show.
Always fun.
It's just like, if there's anything who knows it better than me.
Exactly. And Connor Trenier and Dominic Keating had a podcast called The Shuttlepod Show, which is really
Yes.
good.
Mhm.
And I've been listening to that, and I got enough information. I'm also doing one on the Mark 23. I have my schedule right up here. The Mark 23
You are wise.
SOCOM.
I'm already predicting what I'm going to record next year.
Well, I have to research. I've got piles of books over here. So I'm also doing the Mark 23 SOCOM H&K 45 handgun that was developed. I'm doing a Guns from the Future. We're diving into the weapons program that actually developed it. I'm going to be doing military drugs too. I just did the part of the article, the example where Q plays the future soldier from the post-atomic war. I dove into that example, but the article is huge about military drugs. It's fascinating, especially War II. Everyone was high.
Well, and you were always really good at taking screenshots and to have it illustrate your points.
I love that. And Trek Core is so phenomenal for getting even little moments. I have screensavers built from
Oh
them.
man, all those Blu-ray rip sites. I'm like, man, how much RAM and terabytes that they need to get such great resolution? It's nothing to us. It's like 20 megabytes on our machine, but we're like, man, how'd they do that?
And what's funny, the last one I'm going to be doing that I'm working on is a throwback to an 80s. I also do toys, but not, military science fiction toys. I'm doing one right now on researching STARCOM, the U.S. Space Force. It came out in 87, went through 89. And then I'm going to talk about Jinron, the Wolf Brigade anime. The OVA.
Man.
Going to be doing that one. I've been wanting to do that for years.
How many
I've been
of
at
those
the
did they
stage.
do? Didn't they do like a few follow-ups?
Oh God! And that's like the inception. You want to dive into that, like the red eyes and all the other stuff.
Like a future Gestapo kind of force. They're all dressed up like samurai with Nazi guns.
Oh yeah, and the movie is really different.
Weird. Yeah,
really weird. And it it was in my brain, especially.
I remember it too. It was on Stars a lot. It was like perfect nightmare fuel. You're like, this isn't Akira, but it's a different kind of thing. And like,
At least no one's going, oh, Canada over and over again. Thank God
that's
for
true.
that. That's a drinking game waiting to happen. But the Gibron is interesting, and I've been wanting to talk about it for years. And then Benita Sage and a couple other people have kind of hit it out of the park with Anime Abandoned. And I was like, I need to do something kind of different with that. But anyway, that's what I got coming up. It's all these articles and just doing research and
Glad to
trying
promote
to.
y'all. You guys are always busy.
Yes. Thank you for ever put that in the comment. Yeah, Future War Stories.
Yes.
Thanks to my wife for actually picking that one out of the dozen examples. I was like, I got this one. She goes, that one sounds good. So for the last since 2010, we've been doing that. Eventually, if I was prettier, I would do a video cast, but I'm not pretty, so I can't do that. Anyway, and I eventually am going to do a colonial military of the Battlestar Galactica, the new one and the old one. I eventually going to do a military profile and compare and contrast between the two if I can ever bring
much
myself
like
to do the
Travis
research.
is so good at the inner thoughts. You are good at, and much like remnants here are good at the sci-fi. You are good at just kind of the essence. It's like what does
I'm
this
just
mean
like Scotty.
for fans? Yeah, you are.
I love a good technical
you are putting
manual.
all the particles of the being together. It's like, let's break this down for a minute. Here's what's on the record by the creator. Here's what you.
Oh, there we go.
Gonna get.
Yeah. By the way, that technical manual I got for Christmas, and I spent when my parents, my grandparents. Oh, that one is so divine.
I swear I'm not a nerd.
Oh,
I'm not a nerd. I'm a nerd.
Hey, my favorite technical manual is the Colonial Marines technical manual that came out.
Oh, there's
in
one of that.
It is.
Oh my God!
Hang on, let me find it. Oh, here it is.
See what I just opened up.
See if the camera will pick it up. Oh, I'm gonna turn off my background. Hang on a second. You get somebody else. I'll turn off my background. You can.
You like that one?
Oh, I do. I have. Oh, that is so beautiful.
Was there ever one of Battlestar?
Yes, there's an unofficial one. Okay, so Aliens Colonial Marine Technical.
Word.
Nice.
There's the author.
Info on everything. The miniguns.
This is an astonishing piece. Yeah. Like everything in here. This is a Bible, and I bought this in '96, and is my prized possession. Oh, look at that. What's that one? I didn't see it.
That is actually D&D for Star Trek.
Oh, look at that.
Role playing.
Yeah, role playing.
I still have my copy of my Faja, or however you pronounce them, the Chicago company that made all the early ones. I still have my game modules and all that stuff over there from when we used to play tactical, all the tactical stuff that came around Star Trek 2 and 3. But yeah, Star Trek technical manuals, especially when you held up, is astonishing. In the little things on the bottom where they talk about, I got the word chunky salsa from that.
Something that not even a comic could sum up. But it is always fun to every once in a while read a comic, and they'll sometimes answer pivotal moments. You're like, perfect. That's how many, that's what happened that one tragic night in that character's life.
Right. Or if I would need to find the bathroom on the bridge of the Enterprise D, I know where to go.
Yeah, there you go.
I know right where it is.
Instead of it being a fan theory, now they've worked it.
It's right there in the blueprints. Anyway, that was awesome.
Absolutely.
If you've never read the Alien. Yes, thank you so much for having me on. Sorry, I did this.
No, it's fine. And it is fun seeing some crossover in this. We all want to do something just fun and positive instead of just see dumb clickbait. I've lost track of how many times Screen Rant does a whole proof this might be in the same universe as this. I'm like, guys, you are citing a parody. Come on. How much attention do you really need? I'm so tired of these sites. It's like, hey, click on me. I know you're gonna click on me, even if I piss you off.
The M41, right? The M41 pulse rifle is in Bubblegum Crisis. Okay, so are the Bubblegum Crisis and Aliens connected? Sorry,
you're right. Something like that. There was one I think is like proof that these characters are now part of the Marvel universe. I'm like,
oh God.
It was like someone was dressed up as a Transformers for that Guardians holiday special. I'm like, seriously?
Not everyone's Kevin Bacon, people.
Yeah.
There's 3 seashells in Galactica.
Yeah, there you go. Free seashells. Oh my God. Yeah. We got to tie in Demolition Man. Yeah. And isn't it funny when Stallone explained what they would have done and is like, yeah, now you just created holes in that joke. Just no, leave it to the imagination. It's just so funny how so many, just like we're having actors who are too close to their roles and people are overreacting. It's like, well, they didn't say you couldn't enjoy it. They just said they don't get anything out of it because they did the work. Like same kind of deal here. It's like just let's take a step back. Let's keep that a little more less in your face. So it lands.
Sometimes there still needs to be mystery behind Mona Lisa smiles, right? I don't want to know.
Oh my word!
I don't need to know what she's smiling about. I just need to know she is smiling.
What is that Van Gogh painting really screaming about? Yeah.
My oh no, I know what that is. That's my college tuition bill. That's my student debt. That's what it's screaming about.
The price
and
of
how much it
debt.
costs to have a pool. By the way, no one ever get a pool. I have one. Don't ever get one. They suck.
Seconded. Just use LA Fitness.
They compare pools to like having a boat. You know what's the only 2 happy days of a person that has a boat? When they buy it and when they sell it.
Oh,
Amen, brother.
I don't know why. The way you said that sounded like a Charlie Sheenism.
Yeah, I mean, I tell
I
you,
pay you to go away.
This just happened.
Thanks,
like I was in the middle of the move house hunting, and my roommate was like pool, and I was like no. And then basically, when you don't have a pool, you want to use it, but when you have it in your backyard,
one we
you
have
never
here,
ever use it.
We have
and it's
hired.
expense and maintenance, and it's expensive.
It
to
is,
fix.
and it is funny. You can hire. We've hired about 6 different people to look. Why are there cracks and dents on the bottom of the pool? There is no answer other than your house is very old. And I think I loved how we gave the doctor on the show a spotlight, but I think that is just it. We somehow expect superhumans half the time. We expect people to just give us the goods, and it's like, well, your guess is as good as theirs. It's just value input, but be prepared for like 5 other takes on something, before you have a breakdown on it, and just sum it up. And I love doing these different chats with you guys because I feel like we get to the end of the maze. We get rid of all this ambiguity that people like to pile up. We like to make sense of it all.
Speaking of that, I want to share this last thing. I don't want them to redo. I kind of like Battlestar in some ways, not to be redone or do anything with it. I kind of like it just to be the way it is.
I think
okay, good.
Because I think because Bryan Singer's company was producing it and he got removed from Hollywood. I don't think kind of like how so many projects we're seeing a trend now where if some new VP comes in, they don't want anything to do with the last establishment. They want to leave their own print on it. And I think generally stuff that's on shelves for a while, they kind of just let it go, unless it's something like Masters of the Universe, where someone always wants to do their own take. So I don't know who would even have the guts in this day and age. It just seems like everyone's more keen on, we want you to do a monster movie. We want you to do a freaky film for like 5 million. Or we want you to jump on the pre-established space opera, craze.
I think if they ever did a remake of any kind, I think it should be something totally different, like an animated series,
Bingo.
Comic book series, something that's not a television
That's a good
series.
Point. Bingo. Like maybe not even any robots. Like maybe just they're stranded in space. Maybe have it be a totally different race, but yeah, totally different style. I mean, say what you want about any version of Judge Dredd or RoboCop. At least they did something different each time. Lost in Space wasn't always a great version of what they did each time, but hey, it's Twilight Zone. I can give them each version at least some credit for they had their own identity on how they were going to tell the mystery stories. Yeah, that totally. If they do,
Look how many times they've redone Dune, for God's sake.
There you go. Dune is a perfect. I mean,
what I've been watching a lot of Godzilla the last few months. Like, I've watched everything Godzilla basically.
Isn't it wild how they pick a different style each time? Some are suspenseful.
Well, and not only like once I got done with the movies, then I find like there's 3 anime movies on Netflix.
Yeah,
and then a short anime series on,
and not even counting
also
Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, the Godzilla versus Bambi.
Oh, well, there you go.
But I mean, yeah, that's one of those things that they've done, different ways, several times. So
right, so true. Yeah, it seems like everyone is always torn. They don't ever know if they want to imitate everything, and it's just I'll just say this: I blame marketing each and every time because it seems like they always get people who are just not speaking the same language. They're just fast forwarding through the movie and saying, "Here's the shot that caught my attention. Let's market it this way." I was like, well, that scene's not the movie, though. What if it gets cut? I wish marketing was in studio like it used to be, kind of, because then I think there'd be less miscommunication.
Yeah.
Better yet, if they did it in studio, they'd probably save money because then they wouldn't have to have all these other, off the grid extra millions spent on something that just, again, didn't land. It didn't make people light up when it played at a Super Bowl. Godzilla's been an interesting one. I will see people who won't give it the time of day, and it's like, it's not a dumb monster movie, guys. It's, even if you don't get the nuclear war illusions, it's very much like Planet of the Apes, where you got to settle into the grim atmosphere, and then once you're there, you are there, legit. Like you're getting what's going on in all the mines, and some of the when they actually write the humans well on some of those is like, yeah, I want to see more of that human actually.
I did want to see what the Godzilla they made with Ferris Bueller, Matthew Broderick. I wanted to see him get squished. Like that was the scene where the foot just comes down and kills him. I'd be like, hey, I would have paid for that, because I wanted to see, Godzilla for me is the Japanese imports that my brother and I watched on the local, channel. It was almost like, that
it really was
early
much like
1980s.
Universal Monsters. It was
fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good times.
Totally. I recommend 85. I think that's a good one to introduce people to.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
And just because it's just so creepy how they're crawling. I mean, this is before Die Hard, and after all the other earthquake type disaster movies, like they are having to be dead silent while they're crawling to the top trying to get help. It's like, oh man.
Hey, Godzilla versus Mothra. Just saying.
Oh yeah, true. I still need to see -0.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Oh,
Is it?
Yeah.
So do I have this right? They have a black and white version of it playing now?
Yeah, that's the version I saw.
Oh, sweet. Man, that has to be
Color
creepier in a way.
It was an incredible movie. It's all about loss and shame. It's speaking of the human characters, I think that has the best human story of any Godzilla movie.
That's what we love, dude. And it just seems like they always struggle to get it right.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I used to watch Godzilla, the animated series for Cartoon Network.
Nice.
90s.
Oh, it was inspired by Zilla, but yeah, it's funny. Like for a movie that's not well received, that show was very popular. It just shows you kind of some stuff can be improved upon in a different format. It's just so weird, isn't it? How is like some stuff. I mean, right now we're now figuring out how to make video game adaptations. I'm like, why did it take 3 decades?
Just don't touch the 1981 Flash Gordon movie with the soundtrack by Queen. That's perfect. Don't touch it. Don't.
I so enjoy covering that.
Love that movie.
Don't touch it.
Isn't it wild
touch it.
though how
Don't touch
the
it.
camp didn't land at the time? I would have thought that would have been the most apparent in a post Barbarella Buck Rogers world. I would have thought that would have made the most sense. And without fail, I read nothing but film history books growing up, and it was almost always in one of those. I'm like, really? This is the worst movie of all time?
I was 6 when that movie came out, and I watched it on repeat on HBO. That, Wrath of Khan, and something else, and Chariots of Fire, and what's the other one?
Chariots. Everyone bashes that one now. I'm like, it's just
Clash of the Titans too. I watched all
there you
those
go.
repeat. That's what's wrong with me.
Vangelis was doing the soundtracks for everything, man.
Oh, dude, his Blade Runner soundtrack is divine. Like, but yeah, like.
Oh, you'll love this. I know people who walked out of the new Blade Runner but hadn't even seen the original. I'm like, well, why do you think people like to go to movies and not make time for the last one, unless it's again Star Wars or Marvel? And I'm like, oh.
Blade Runner 2049 was perfect. I cried during that movie. I cried, and my wife said, she told me, she goes, "You're seeing that movie alone."
My sister was demolished at the end of it. She's like, "I get to pick the next movie."
I was crying.
Fair enough.
My wife's like, "You're seeing that movie alone because you'll criticize it."
She was so mad at me when we found out that was Anna de Armas. She's like, why did you not tell me that was her? I'm like, I didn't realize it was her.
That's how I knew who she was. That movie. I still can't. When I saw her in Bond, I'm like, hey, it's Joy.
Yeah, before Knives Out, and it is so much fun how we. I mean, I do this with even other actors. When Pacific Rim came out, I was having to tell everyone, like, yeah, this gal was in that one depressing Oscar bait movie, or this person was on Doctor Who, and I still my co-host has never seen Always Sunny, but he can't stand Charlie Day. I'm like, well, try taking that up with the Always Sunny fans. It is interesting when are a fan of an actor, but not necessarily what they're famous for, and vice versa. Like, hey, I like this guy, but I haven't seen what got them on the map. This one movie or these two sitcoms. It's just,
or like Ron Perlman. I mean,
yeah,
I remember him as the
where do you
Kurgan.
start with him? Yeah, I really don't think we could have done a better job. Like I think just about every subplot and compiled moment got summed up, and I didn't know where to approach this. I'll be honest, because even though this show is pretty straightforward, it really isn't. It's just like, okay, we could go here and go there, but just having done enough of these breakdowns of movie and TV franchises, like, okay, let's just go with the flow. And then once these
simple, but what we
subplots come
talk
up,
about on the show has so many levels of depth.
right? And but it's good if you want to talk about it for hours. So
hell yeah.
Yeah. All right. Safe flying, Mr. Top Gun. And
later.
Everyone
Later
else
on, fellas.
reporting off. Always a delight.
Thank you.
Look forward to the next
Thank you.
space shuttle takeoff.
Nice meeting you all.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up